Chapter 5082. Later, Sun Yunzi successfully refined the Python Dragon Pill. Relying on the Python Dragon Pill and the 9 transformations Golden Pill technique, Fairy Yingzhua stepped into the Severed Spirit stage and became one of the few grandmasters in Shi. But just when Fairy Yingzhua was happy, Dongshani took advantage of the fact that her profound Qi had not recovered and used a secret technique to possess her body. Dongshani had thought that by abandoning her werewolf form and using the body of a human divinity separating stage cultivator, the backlash from the Green Seal script would be eliminated. However, after 100 years, she discovered that the backlash from before had reappeared. Only now did she understand that the backlash from the Green Seal text was not only the body, but also the soul. Since this was the case, for Dongshan-yi, who was born in the demon race, Goddess Xianwan's body was 100 times stronger than that of an ordinary human cultivator. Therefore, Dongshan-yi abandoned her earlier plan and prepared to use Xianwan's body for herself. But fortunately, Fairy Yingzhua was a severed spirit stage cultivator. This human body was brand new and could last for 1,000 years. Therefore, Dongshan-yi did not attack Xianwan in these 600 years. Fairy Yingzhua, who killed Shang Huaming, was possessed by Dongshan-yi and died silently. The other murderer, Reverend Lu Anai of the Seven Skills sect, also received his retribution. The Seven Skills sect was originally a refining sect, and the sect's founder left behind countless magic treasures. Among the 3 late nascent soul stage cultivators, Reverend Lu Anai was the most well-prepared. During the tribulation, his magic treasures were packed to the teeth. But even so, Reverend Lu Anai could not withstand the lightning strike, and was killed by the lightning. Even his primordial spirit did not escape, and his soul was scattered. Up until now, only Sun Yunzi of the Splendid sect had safely passed through the lightning tribulation. According to the customs of the 3 cultivation nations of the Dawn Rain continent, he had passed the position of sect master of the Splendid sect to someone else, and became a carefree Grand Supreme Elder. Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a rare ruthlessness. He said indifferently, "Good will be rewarded with good and evil will be punished with evil. It's not that the time has not come yet. When the time comes, those who have hatred will take revenge. And now it's time for Sun Yunzi to die." Xiao Hua looked at Dongshan-yi. His tone was still calm. "Previously, this old man already said, this old man will not forgive you. However, I won't kill you as you think. Killing you is too easy, and you definitely won't learn your lesson. This old man will imprison you and make you suffer the backlash of the forbidden power day and night." As he spoke, Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed. A green light entered Dongshani's body. Dongshani still turned into Fairy Yingzhua's appearance and sat on the ground calmly. Spiritual master, spiritual master. Seeing that he couldn't use his Dharma power, forbidden power, or even demonic power, Dongshani panicked and shouted, "Please have mercy and kill me. I really don't want to live in this world." Xiao Hua ignored her. The Kunlun mirror in his hand shook, and Huang Tong flew out from within. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I'll have to trouble you, fellow Taoist, to imprison this wolf race with that little snow wolf." "Sure." Huang Tong didn't decline. With a wave of her sharp claws, she grabbed Dongshan-yi and spread her wings, tearing the void apart and leaving. Seeing that there was no one left, Xiao Hua asked Yuanya, "Yeah, are you going back to Shenhua continent to cultivate, or are you going to walk around Xiaoyu continent with me?" Yuanya smiled and said, "Dyer is gone. My Tao heart is a little unstable, and without her holy power, I'll be in danger refining the bone spear. It's better for me to stay by Master's side." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Yuanya looked around and said, "Besides, Lu Yi and the others aren't by Master's side. Master is a supreme being of the human race, and there's no reason for him to do anything. I'll stay by Master's side and serve him." Xiao Hua said curiously, "Yeah, why are you talking so much? Die. Or once said that silence is golden, but when it's time to speak, you still have to speak. Otherwise, others won't know what you're thinking." Yuanya replied, "So, what I just said is what I think." "Good." Auspicious clouds appeared under Xiao Hua's feet, and he slowly flew up and praised. "There's a saying in the human race's Confucian cultivators that a woman is an academy, and a good woman can make a man more outstanding. Yeah, you're blessed." "Yes, Master." Yuanya put away his bone spear and respectfully flew behind Xiaohua. This disciple will definitely go to the heavenly fortune palace to marry Dai. Xiaohua smiled and flew aimlessly for a while, then suddenly stopped and turned to look in the direction of Sky Patrol City. Master. Yuanya naturally knew that direction was Sky Patrol City, and hurriedly asked, "Are you going to Sky Patrol City?" "Forget it." Xiaohua shook his head and said, "Sky Patrol City is now the territory of sword cultivators, and Master has no karma with sword cultivators. Why would I go there?" "Then where are we going?" Yuanya asked. Xiaohua looked in a direction and answered firmly, "The place of origin, the place where the fortune gate takes root." "Okay." Yuanya replied and left with Xiaohua. Just as Xiaohua turned around, Sky Patrol City, which was like a monster in the sky, suddenly shone brightly, and a city gate that was closed in the wind and snow opened with a roar. Inside the city gate, tens of thousands of flying swords rushed out in a mighty manner, forming a bridge that was several miles long in the night sky, reaching far into the darkness. At the end of the bridge, a handsome young man with a graceful temperament and a serene expression slowly stepped out of the city gate, dressed in a white robe. A faint halo appeared on the robe, reflecting the young man's jade-like face, and under the robe, the light purple sword robe made the young man look even sharper. Behind the young man was a late-stage gold core cultivator. This cultivator was dressed in a Taoist robe, and he also looked young. There was a smile on his face, and there was clearly a kind of respect on his face. As these two people walked out of the city gate, two female foundation establishment cultivators led more than 10 handsome men and beautiful women, who were in the Qi refinement realm. They held magic tools that looked like lanterns in their hands and quietly rushed out. Then they stood neatly on both sides of the city gate. The brilliance on the magic tools flashed with 9 colors, driving away the nearby darkness. The young man glanced at the night, then looked at the trembling flying sword under his feet, and frowned slightly. "Xiaomao, although this is Sky Patrol City and not Enlightenment Mountain Manor, but such a welcome. Isn't it too stingy? Don't let others look down on you." When Xiaomao heard this, he humbly replied, "Young master, some people like vanity, some people like peace, some people like power, and some people like pampering. Young master, you have to cater to their preferences. Tonight, young master, you have to be as grand as when you welcomed Vice Alliance leader Luo. Maybe that person will avoid you at first sight, and all of young master's plans will be in vain." The young man who was called young master nodded slightly and smiled. "Then I'll listen to you today. As long as that person enters Sky Patrol City, no matter what the outcome is, I'll get someone to help you conceive a baby." Xiaomao was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. "Thank you for your kindness, young master." While they were talking, there was the sound of a sword, and a small sword swept over their heads and flew into Sky Patrol City. Then a voice sounded from the city. "Young Master Yi, the person you've been waiting for is here." "Haha, thank you, General, for asking the patrolling swordsman to let them in." Young Master Yi shouted with a smile. "Yes, sir." Someone in the city responded, and another small sword that sent a message rushed into the night sky like a meteor. "Young Master." Xiaomao raised his hand and said, "I'll accompany young master to welcome them." "Okay." The young man nodded. Sword light appeared under his feet as he stepped on the bridge and flew into the night sky. When Xiaomao followed, the other low-level disciples did not dare to delay. Like Xiaomao, they did not step on the bridge. Instead, they urged their bodies to fly behind. After half a cup of tea's time, they saw a red light in the distant night sky. When they flew closer, they could see clearly that it was a flying boat that looked like a bird. There were several Taoist cultivators standing on the flying boat, and the one in front was a female nascent soul cultivator. She was as beautiful as a fairy, and her thin lips carried a faint smile, not to mention her snow-white skin and peach-red Taoist robe, which gave birth to an unparalleled beauty in the dark night. Just the green bean-sized beauty mole at the corner of her mouth and her jade-like cheeks were enough to give birth to an indescribable wildness. Wasn't this female cultivator Fairy Hongxia? The cultivators behind Fairy Hongxia were not worth mentioning. Most of them were in the Foundation establishment realm, and only one of them was in the early-stage Golden Core realm. The young man's gaze fell on Fairy Hongxia's beautiful face, and 2 balls of flame suddenly appeared in his originally calm eyes. It was just that the flames were fleeting and not obvious. As the flying boat flew closer, they heard the bridge. Fairy Hongxia did not fly out from the flying boat, but looked at Xiao Mao and frowned. Junior brother Xiao, I'm here. I'm Yi Shixiang. Greetings to Fairy Hongxia. The young man smiled and hurriedly bowed. I've long heard of Fairy Hongxia's great name, and have always wanted to meet you. Unfortunately, there was a barrier between sword cultivators and Dao cultivators, so I never had the chance. Now that I've finally met Fairy Hongxia, I'm sure you live up to your reputation. In the 3 kingdoms of cultivation, I'm afraid there's no other woman as outstanding as Fairy Hongxia. I don't dare. Fairy Hongxia saw that although the young man looked young, his cultivation had already reached 2nd grade sword transformation realm. She did not dare to slight him and hurriedly bowed in return. I'm nothing but an undeserved reputation. After cultivating bitterly for close to 1,000 years, I'm still an early-stage nascent soul realm cultivator. How can I compare to you? You look young, but you're already a 2nd grade sword transformation realm cultivator. I'm the one whose undeserved reputation. Yi Shixiang hurriedly said humbly. My aptitude cannot be compared to Fairy Hongxia's. If I wasn't the young master of the Yi clan, and was born with the convenience of cultivation, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be a sword transformation realm cultivator. It's indeed young Master Yi. When Fairy Hongxia heard this, her face revealed a smile that resembled an epiphyllum. She said, I've received junior brother Zhao's message, saying that the Yi clan has the intention to form an alliance with my Kai clan. I'm a little surprised. My Kai clan is not well known in the country of Xi. I wonder why the Yi clan would want to form an alliance with my Kai clan. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5083. Haha, Fairy is indeed a competent patriarch. You haven't even said a few words, and you've already brought up the family's matters. I really admire you. Yi Shixiang laughed and said, compared to Fairy, this one is much more lazy. If it wasn't for Xiao Mao saying that the world's situation has changed greatly, and that us aristocratic families need to adapt to the trend and form many alliances, this one wouldn't even remember to do something for the clan. Therefore, I'm very concerned about the alliance between the Yi family and Kai family. In order to not cause Fairy to misunderstand, I've specially chosen Sentry City as the location for the discussion. I wonder if Fairy is satisfied? Fairy Hongxia looked at Sentry City on the other side of the bridge, and replied neither haughtily nor humbly. As long as there's sincerity, anywhere is fine. Good. Yi Shixiang clapped his hands and said, with Fairy's words, I'm relieved. I can finally do something for my Yi family. Thank you, Fairy, for your help. Fairy, please. Fairy Hongxia flew down from the flying boat and nodded at Xiao Mao. Xiao Mao originally wanted to go up and greet her, but when he saw Fairy Hongxia land on the bridge, he hurriedly stopped and bowed in midair. Little brother greets senior sister. Fairy Hongxia raised her hand to signal Xiao Mao to get up and asked, how have you been recently? I'm all right. Xiao Mao smiled bitterly. Other than not having a baby, everything is fine. Fairy Hongxia smiled. Not all of one's pursuits are cultivation. If you only think about having a baby, you might not be able to have one. Moreover, your foundation is excellent. If you don't walk the path of having a baby, you can consider other methods. Sigh, senior sister. Xiao Mao replied with a sullen face. Little brother is a cultivator. What else can I do if I don't cultivate? If I don't walk the path of having a baby, do I have to walk the path of transforming into a sword? Forget it. Fairy Hongxia didn't have much experience and couldn't answer him. She shook her head and said, I'm just an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. I can't give you more pointers. At this point, Fairy Hongxia smiled at Yi Shixiang and said, Young Master Yi, if the alliance between the Kai family and the Yi family succeeds, Xiao Mao will be a great contributor. The Yi family can't treat Xiao Mao unfairly. Yes. Fairy, don't worry. Yi Shixiang hastily nodded. Fairy might not know the details of my Yi clan right now, but Fairy will understand in the future. My Yi clan's foundation isn't something that ordinary aristocratic families can compare to. So my Yi clan will absolutely not treat anyone who helps my Yi clan unfairly. Alright, young master, please. Fairy Hongxia raised her hand to indicate for Yi Shixiang to go first. Yi Shixiang smiled and stopped being courteous. He activated his sword light and stepped onto the bridge to fly towards Sentry City. Fairy Hongxia frowned as she looked at the bridge beneath her feet. She then looked at Xiao Mao and the rest who were standing respectfully at the side, not daring to approach. She turned her head and instructed, "All of you keep the flying boat and follow Xiao Mao over." "Yes, Patriarch." A few cultivators responded and alighted from the flying boat. They all came over to greet Xiao Mao. Judging from the expressions on their faces, they seemed to be very familiar with him. As Fairy Hongxia flew past, the bridge flew like a colorful sparrow and slowly retracted. When Yi Shixiang accompanied Fairy Hongxia into Sky Patrol City, the bridge also fell into Sky Patrol City. The city gates were closed, the light was extinguished, and the night was deep. The wind was violent, the snow was heavy, and the storm in the sky was brewing to strike. Xiao Hua naturally did not know that he had already missed the opportunity to meet Fairy Hongxia. He brought Yuanya and flew away. The snowflakes gradually lessened, and the first rays of the morning sun had also arrived. Xiao Hua loved the moment when the sun first rose. At that moment, everything between heaven and earth seemed to be brand new. Moreover, as he flew, the rays of light were born everywhere. Every ray of light was filled with joy and warmth of welcome. Xiao Hua was looking at the foothills in the distance, wanting to say something to Yuanya. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and looked into the distance with some surprise. He said curiously, "It's really strange. Why are they together again?" "Master." Yuanya smiled. "Could it be that you've met an acquaintance again?" "That's right." Xiao Hua looked in that direction with a smile. "This Dawn Rain continent is where I used to cultivate. I even participated in an extremely famous sword Dao battle here, so I know a lot of cultivators. Look, I've met a few more while flying. It's just that I'm a little hesitant. Should I go down and meet them or stay here and watch the situation develop?" "Disciple will follow wherever master goes." Yuanya didn't have any good suggestions and only answered casually, "Let's go down." Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, "However, I want to hide my cultivation and test some people's reactions. I can also settle some karma while I'm at it." "All right," Yuanya said and used the Fortune Gate's secret technique to suppress his cultivation to the nascent soul realm. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Nascent soul realm cultivators are masters on the Dawn Rain continent. With your cultivation, who else can I test?" Unfortunately, Yuanya also smiled bitterly and said, "Master, this is the lowest level disciple can suppress. Why don't you seal disciple's cultivation first?" "It seems like that's the only way." Xiao Hua smiled slightly. His hands moved and several seals entered Yuanya's body, suppressing Yuanya's cultivation from the verge of 8th grade to early gold core realm. "Huh." Xiao Hua looked around and said with a smile, "There's no other way. Only gold core realm cultivators can be master's disciple." While he was speaking, Xiao Hua's cultivation also fell rapidly. It fell to early nascent soul realm before it stopped. "Master." Yuanya curled his lips and said, "Your acquaintance is actually a nascent soul realm cultivator? This kind of cultivator. Do you still want to test him?" "Yes." Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and said, "Because this involves a person's life and death. Master can't not treat this seriously. Let's go. I hope this person can change a little in these few hundred years." Yuanya followed Xiao Hua and flew towards the east. After a meal, he saw a flying boat flying out of the morning sun. There were 3 cultivators standing on the flying boat. Xiao Hua stopped in midair and saw the flying boat getting closer and closer. Although he had already seen the people coming with his divine sense, when he saw them with his eyes, the corners of his eyes couldn't help but moisten. At the bow of the flying boat was a white-haired late gold core realm old man. This old man's face was full of wrinkles and he looked quite old. However, standing on the flying boat, he was still as straight as a rock. Behind the old man was a beautiful woman. She looked to be in her 20s, but her cultivation was also in the middle gold core realm. As for the cultivator steering the boat, he was only in the foundation establishment realm. The flying boat glided through the air lightly, raising a beautiful arc. The old man's eyes were a little blurred. He swept past the mountain ridge on the left and didn't see Xiaohua stopping in midair. On the contrary, the woman was looking in another direction. However, the moment Xiaohua stopped, she suddenly turned her head and saw Xiaohua's smiling face. But what was strange was that when the woman saw Xiaohua, it was as if she didn't see him. She only slightly raised the corner of her mouth, and a bitter smile appeared in her eyes. Then she looked in another direction. However, right when the woman's bright eyes were moving about, she suddenly came to an understanding and hurriedly looked at Xiaohua again. When her gaze descended into Xiaohua's slightly red eyes, the woman's eyes suddenly dilated while absolute wild joy surged into her heart. The woman couldn't help but raise her hands to cover her mouth, and then 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. Xiaohua. The woman was almost moaning and almost roaring. She barely managed to squeeze Xiaohua's name from her heart into her mouth. Oh. The old man in the lead was startled. He withdrew his sad gaze and whispered, "What's wrong?" "Sunshu." "Xiaohua." The woman bit her lips so hard that they turned white. She stared at Xiaohua and pointed at him as she spoke hatefully. "Xiaohua." Only then did the old man look in the direction Sunshu was pointing at. At this moment, Xiaohua had already flown over. He bowed from afar and said, "Martial Uncle Zhenqing, hello." "Xiaohua. You are really Xiaohua?" Zhenqing was obviously very surprised. He looked at Xiaohua in disbelief as if he didn't dare to recognize him. However, in just a few breaths, Zhenqing's figure flashed and actually flew out from the flying boat. He rushed in front of Xiaohua and scolded, "Child, where have you been all these years?" "Martial uncle." Zhenqing was the first disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect that Xiaohua saw after returning to the Dawn Rain continent. Zhenqing's words immediately pulled out the memories from a long time ago from the depths of his mind. He couldn't hold it in anymore and called out, "Martial uncle," as tears rolled down his face. "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." Zhenqing's tears also fell. He patted Xiaohua's shoulder and said, "It's good that you're back alive. Don't cry." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiaohua sniffed. It really felt like he had returned to the time when he was a low-level disciple. He replied in a low voice, "Senior martial brother." Sunshu naturally had also flown over. At this time he stopped crying. His pair of red eyes were like a rabbit's as he stared at Xiaohua, afraid that he would suddenly disappear again. He only called out, "Senior martial brother," before his mouth was blocked by the excitement of meeting again after a long time. He couldn't say another word. "Junior Zhenyu greets martial uncle." The foundation establishment disciple kept the flying boat and stood at the side. Although he didn't know Xiaohua's cultivation level, he hurriedly took the opportunity to bow and greet him after hearing Zhenqing and Sunshu's greeting. "He, quickly get up. There's no need to be polite." Xiaohua sniffed again and raised his hand to help Zhenyu up. He said, "This Xiao hasn't seen a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect for a long time. I can't help but forget myself." Yes. Zhenyu smiled and said, "It's always like this when meeting after a long time." Then Zhenyu looked at Yuanya who was behind Xiaohua and bowed. "Martial uncle. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and..." Chapter 5084. Yuanya clearly didn't know how to address this little foundation establishment cultivator. He could only raise his hand to help Zhenyu up and said indifferently, "Get up." Zhenqing and Sunshu naturally only had Xiaohua in their eyes. Now that they heard Zhenyu mention him, they finally noticed Yuanya. Zhenqing hurriedly smiled and said, "May I know how to address this fellow Taoist?" Xiaohua was a bit embarrassed. He regretted that he didn't introduce Yuanya earlier. He coughed and said, "Martial uncle, this is Junior's disciple. His name is Yuanya." Ah. Zhenqing and Sunshu weren't particularly surprised, but Zhenyu was shocked. He unconsciously glanced at Xiaohua again. Suddenly he seemed to have realized something and exclaimed, You are Xiaohua, Taoist Xiao?" After saying that, Jinyu disregarded everything and knelt down in the air. He kowtowed and said, Junior Jinyu greets Daoist Xiao. Hearing Jinyu call him Daoist Xiao, Xiaohua immediately understood. He smiled and helped Jinyu up. Get up. I'm also an ordinary cultivator. I'm not as noble as you think I am. Daoist Xiao, Daoist Xiao. Jinyu was clearly very excited. He even talked a bit too much. Although he had already gotten up, he still said, You don't know. Ever since I was born, I've always heard about Daoist Xiao from my father. If it wasn't for Daoist Xiao, nearly 2,000 people in the Jade Cloud Ridge would have starved to death. Seeing that Jinyu was going to be long-winded, Xiaohua hurriedly said, Jinyu, this is something from many years ago. Yes, it's been many years. However, according to what this humble one knows, until now the grains used in the vicinity of the Jade Cloud Ridge were still bestowed by Reverend Xiao back then. Jinyu continued speaking persistently. However, when he reached this point, he saw Zhenqing frowning slightly. He hurriedly stopped speaking and said with a smile, This humble one will stop speaking. This humble one is truly too excited. This humble one has finally met Reverend Xiao, whom this humble one has been praying for day and night. After Jinyu retreated to the side, Zhenqing said with a bitter smile, Xiaohua, I was so happy to see you that I forgot that you were already a nascent soul cultivator when you left the Imperial Thunder sect. This poor Taoist should be calling you senior now. Martial uncle, your words are too much for this junior. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, I'm well aware of how you treat me, not to mention my current cultivation base. Even if I reach the Grand Ascension stage, I'm still a junior in front of you. Sai, forget it. Do as you wish. Zhenqing sighed and said, This old man's lifespan is about to end. You can call me whatever you want. Sai, that's right. Senior's luck is a little bad. Xiaohua looked at Zhenqing and felt a little helpless. When Xiaohua entered the Imperial Thunder sect, Zhenqing was already an early gold core cultivator. It had already been more than 600 years, but Zhenqing was still only a late gold core cultivator. Now looking at her lifespan, she only had a few years left. It was really impossible for her to have a baby in this lifetime. Soon after, Xiaohua looked at Sun Shu. Sun Shu was already at the middle gold core stage. It seemed that his progress in the past few hundred years had been smooth. However, in front of Zhenqing, Xiaohua didn't say anything. Sun Shu only nodded at Xiaohua. With Jinyu's interruption, Yuanya didn't greet him. Xiaohua didn't mention it again. He just smiled and asked, Martial uncle, where are you going? It doesn't seem like you're going to the Imperial Thunder sect. Zhenqing replied, Sai, why should I go back to the Imperial Thunder sect? This old man is going to the Blazing Fire Mountain. Blazing Fire Mountain? Xiaohua was slightly stunned and asked curiously, Why is Martial uncle going to the Blazing Fire Mountain? It's a long story. Zhenqing smiled bitterly and said, This old man was originally traveling outside, and wanted to see if I could find an opportunity during the last period of time. However, after a few years, I received a message from the sect, asking all the disciples to return to the sect for training. However, just as this old man was about to return to the sect, I received a message from Hall Master Zhen Sheng, asking this old man to take a few disciples to the Blazing Fire Mountain on his behalf. He said that he was returning a favor for him. In the end, Martial Uncle Zhenqing intercepted I and Jinyu on the way and brought us to the Blazing Fire Mountain. Sun Shu smiled like a flower and said, As for why we are going to the Blazing Fire Mountain, we don't know. We only know that when we are near the Blazing Fire Mountain, we will release a messaging talisman, and someone called the Fire Qilin will come and pick us up. Hearing about the Blazing Fire Mountain and the Fire Qilin, Xiaohua seemed to understand something. He thought for a while and said with a smile, Martial uncle, although Hall Master Zhen Sheng didn't say it clearly in the message, I think Martial uncle should know something about it, right? Sai, what else can it be? Zhenqing sighed and said, Since the last Sword Dao War, the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain died in the Sky Patrol City. The Blazing Fire Mountain was divided into 3 factions. They fought with each other to snatch spirit stones and other things. In the past few hundred years, countless people have died. The Blazing Fire Mountain has now become an ordinary sect. I also know about the Fire Qilin. He is the grandson of one of the 3 branches of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Previously, he was not conspicuous and was doted on by the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Later, those who were more senior than him died, and his branch recommended him. If I'm not wrong this time, he is going to mediate and help. Hallmaster Zhen is now a middle nascent soul grandmaster, and represents the Shaolei Hall of the Imperial Thunder sect. It's not appropriate for him to be involved in this matter, so I am going to do it, Sun Shu said with a smile. The current Blazing Fire Mountain is no longer the same as before. Cultivators in the late Gold Core realm are rare. Martial Uncle Zhen is enough. Sun Shu looked at Xiaohua and said in a low voice. Not long after Martial Brother was expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect, the former sect master Qian Lazy came out of seclusion. Former sect master? Xiaohua was stunned and asked curiously, "Isn't Qian Lazy the sect master now?" Sun Shu nodded and said, "Yes. When Martial Brother left the Imperial Thunder sect, Senior Qian Lazy had entered the late nascent soul realm. About 70 years ago, Senior Qian Lazy failed to break through to the severed divinity realm and died. Now the middle nascent soul realm Fairy Xianhua is the sect master." Sun Shu hesitated because Fairy Xianhua was the one who expelled Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder sect. He was afraid that Xiaohua would bear a grudge. Sure enough, hearing that Fairy Xianhua was the sect master, Xiaohua sneered. Seeing Xiaohua's reaction, Sun Shu hurriedly said, "Martial Brother, I don't know where you have been for the past several hundred years." However, Senior Qian Lazy had just come out of seclusion and issued a pardon order, asking Thunder Meng Dao Master to chase after you with the pardon order. He wanted to take you back into the sect, but Thunder Meng Dao Master couldn't find you. As for the specific situation, I'm afraid only Senior Nascent Soul Realm knows. However, Martial Brother, the current Imperial Thunder sect, has declined. You are so powerful, and there are fortune gates all over the 3 countries. I think you should return to the Imperial Thunder sect. If Master Qian Lazy was still the sect master, or if Reverend Lei Meng was still the sect master, Xiaohua might have considered Sun Shu's suggestion. However, after hearing that Fairy Xianhua had become the sect master, how could Xiaohua still return to Imperial Thunder sect? He smiled and said, "Martial Brother has just returned. I want to see an old friend and reminisce about the past. Let's talk about this later." All right. Sun Shu also understood that spilled water couldn't be undone. He forced a smile and said, "Where is Martial Brother going? I will send Martial Brother off." "Oh, I don't have a fixed place." Xiaohua smiled and said, "It's just that I haven't seen the scenery of the state of Xi for a long time." Hee, that's great. Sun Shu pursed his lips and said, "If Martial Brother has nothing to do, why don't you take a trip to the Ardent Fire Mountain with Martial Uncle Zhenqing? With Martial Brother there, we can be at ease." Hearing this, Zhenqing's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, Good. Come with this old man. Several hundred years have passed. Perhaps not many people can remember the mysterious nameless sword battle. However, you were already a nascent soul realm cultivator at that time. I'm afraid you are even more powerful now. You can give this old man some courage." "All right." Xiaohua nodded and said, "Junior has nothing to do anyway. I'll accompany Martial Uncle." "That's right." Zhenqing pulled Xiaohua's robe and ordered Zhenyu to release the flying boat. He said, "In a few years, even if you want to accompany this old man, I'm afraid you won't be able to find me." Sun Shu's face was also full of smiles. He turned to look at Yuanya and said, "Yuanya, what's your master's cultivation now? Late nascent soul realm?" Yuanya rubbed his nose and thought for a moment before saying, "Martial Uncle, you should ask Master about this matter." Sun Shu smiled and said, "Senior Brother likes to keep a low profile. From what you said, even if he isn't late nascent soul realm, I'm afraid he isn't far from it. No wonder he doesn't want to return to Imperial Thunder sect." "Oh right, you can just call me Sun Shu. I call you Senior Brother because we used to be Senior Brother and Junior Sister. I'm used to calling you that. You and I are both Golden Core Realm cultivators. You can just call me fellow Taoist." "All right." Yuanya didn't stand on ceremony and nodded in agreement. Seeing that everyone had boarded the flying boat, Zhen shouted and urged the flying boat to continue flying in the direction of Ardent Fire Mountain. Xiaohua stood beside Zhenqing. He stole a glance at Zhenqing's white hair and asked in a low voice, "Martial Uncle, Junior remembers that when I left Imperial Thunder Sect, didn't I tell Martial Uncle about Sun Qian? Why? Alas, it's all in the past. It's meaningless to mention it again." Zhenqing's wrinkled face showed bitterness. He waved his hand to stop Xiaohua from continuing. He asked again, "But you, where have you been for the past few hundred years? Looking at your cultivation, it seems to be even more powerful than before. Oh, not to mention you, even this disciple of yours is more powerful than this old man." Junior obtained a little opportunity. Xiaohua replied, "Now I'm indeed more powerful than before, but, in other words, they had reached here." Woo-woo. The sound of wind whistling could be heard in the distant sky. Soon after, the pressure of an early nascent soul stage cultivator surged out like a gale and swept towards the flying boat. Wherever the pressure passed, rocks were overturned and trees were toppled. The brilliance of the flying boat was also rapidly extinguished. Zhenqing, Sun Shu, and Zhenyu naturally couldn't resist the aura. Zhenyu collapsed on the flying boat and let it roll over. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 5085. Who is it? Xiaohua pretended to roar and released his spiritual pressure. The two spiritual pressures collided with each other. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions sounded and ripples appeared in the void nearby. Xiaohua then used his magic power again to stabilize the flying boat. With Xiaohua's spiritual pressure resisting, Zhenqing and Sun Shu struggled to stand up. They looked at the sky and saw another flying boat. There were more than 10 people standing on the flying boat. In the front were a male and female early nascent soul stage cultivators. The male cultivator was middle-aged and wore armor. He held a spear-like magic treasure in his hand. As for the female cultivator, she was only in her 20s. She was as beautiful as a flower. Her big watery eyes were looking at Xiaohua and Zhenqing with surprise and disdain on her face. Wasn't this female cultivator Chen-Yi of Buried Flower Manor? You. Seeing Chen-Yi appear, Zhenqing was a bit angry. He raised his hand and pointed at her. "Chen-Yi, what are you doing? I already told you that I don't want to see you again in this life." Chen-Yi glanced at Zhenqing indifferently and said, "Zhenqing, the past is the past. There's no need to mention it again. To be honest, I didn't expect to meet you here today. But since we've already met, then why don't we settle our grudges here?" "Us? It seems that us also includes me?" Xiaohua looked at Chen-Yi and said coldly, "I wonder what grudges you have with me?" Haha. Chen-Yi laughed and withdrew the pressure of an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. She looked even more beautiful after being pregnant. She laughed and said, "There are so many people in this world who think too highly of themselves. You are the famous Taoist Xiao of Donrain Continent, but in the eyes of my Tongmu city, you are nothing. The grudges between you and me, don't you know? Now that you've walked into the trap, everything that happened before, let's settle it today." At this point, Chen-Yi looked into the distance and shouted, "Bitch, why don't you come out? Do you want me to capture you personally before you show yourself?" Zhenqing heard and felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly looked in that direction. Sure enough, a faint brilliance flashed in the distant sky. Sun Qian, who had a slightly elegant temperament and a stubborn look, appeared. At this time, Sun Qian was only in her 30s. There were no more scars on her face. She had a noble and pure temperament, and had a unique charm. Seeing Sun Qian appear, Zhenqing hurriedly shouted, Why are you here? Why aren't you running?" Alas! Sun Qian let out a long sigh as she looked at Zhenqing with a complicated expression. After that, she flew in front of Zhenqing and stood in front of Zhenqing. Facing Chen-Yi, Sun Qian said coldly, "Chen-Yi, actually the thing between you and Zhenqing is nothing serious. You only need to tell Qing Liuzi the details." Damn it! Without waiting for Sun Qian to finish speaking, Chen-Yi cursed in a low voice, "Sun Qian, you dare to plant spies in Tongmu City." It was as if Sun Qian was not facing a nascent soul cultivator. she said coldly. If I didn't, how would I know that you wanted to kill Zhenqing to avoid suspicion? Ah. Chen Yi's face suddenly changed. She laughed and said, Sun Qian is your informant, Zhengcheng? You. Suddenly, Sun Qian seemed to realize something. She raised her hand and pointed at Sun Qian. You're too cunning. You're killing 3 birds with 1 stone. You want to kill Zhenqing, Zhengcheng and me at the same time? Chen Yi smiled and nodded. Sun Qian, you've been fighting with me for a lifetime. But now, your last sentence is the most correct. I wanted to praise you, but I didn't expect Taoist Master Xiao to walk into the trap. My plan of killing 3 birds with 1 stone has become killing 4 birds with 1 stone. You're still wrong. Ai Zhenqing. Hearing this, Sun Qian turned her head slightly. Looking at Zhenqing's white hair, she smiled bitterly. It's all my fault. If I'd just backed off a little and sent you a message. There's no need for that. Zhenqing looked at the dozen cultivators on the Twilight Tong City's flying boat surrounding them. The early-stage nascent soul-stage male cultivator stood beside Chen Yi with a spear magic artifact in his hand. The fear in her heart gradually disappeared and she said faintly, I don't have much time left to live. Today, I was able to see her true face. This trip was not in vain. Sun Qian looked at Zhenqing. She bit her lips and said word by word. Being able to die with you, this life of mine was not made in vain. Umph. Chen Yi's face twisted. It was as if she couldn't bear to see others get better. She smiled maliciously and said, Then all of you can die together. After saying this, Chen Yi raised her hand and was about to give the order. Sun Qian held Zhenqing's hand. She looked at Xiao Hua apologetically and said, Taoist Master Xiao, I didn't thank you back then. Today I've implicated you. I can only say sorry. It's fine, it's fine. Xiao Hua smiled and said, My matter is really nothing. The matter between you and Martial Uncle Zhen is more important. Previously, I wanted to ask you what you've been thinking for the past hundreds of years. Why did you waste hundreds of years? But now that I see that you're willing to live and die with Martial Uncle Zhen, I feel that, as long as there's true love, as long as we know each other, there's no need to care about time. At this point, Xiaohua looked coldly at Chen Yi and said, Unlike some people who have long abandoned their human emotions, for power, they sold their soul and body. Haha. Chen Yi looked at Xiaohua and laughed loudly. Taoist Master Xiao, so what if I sold my soul and body? Look at the 2 of them. In the past, their cultivation was higher than mine. But now, they're only golden core stage cultivators. Each of them is struggling at death's door, waiting for the end of their lifespans. As for me, I've already become a nascent soul stage cultivator. When their corpses turn into ashes, I'll still be living freely in Twilight Tong City. Yes, you seem to be living freely, but in reality, whether you're a walking corpse or not, I'm afraid only you know, right? Xiaohua mocked. The corner of Chen Yi's mouth curled up in disdain as she said, Xiaohua, don't flaunt your sharp tongue. No matter how fierce your words are, you won't be able to escape today's calamity. Ah. Xiaohua was shocked. How did I offend you? You actually want to take my life? Taoist Master Xiao, why are you pretending to be confused? Chen Yi sneered. Do you know how powerful the Fortune Gate is in the 3 countries? Everyone respects you, Taoist Master Xiao. If my Twilight Tong City captures the real Taoist Master Xiao, then wouldn't the Fortune Gate of the 3 countries be controlled by my Twilight Tong City? Do you think I'll cooperate with you? Xiaohua said sarcastically. The corner of Chen Yi's mouth twitched, and she said decisively, If you don't cooperate, then die. A dead Taoist Master Xiao naturally can't compare to a living Taoist Master Xiao. However, a Fortune Gate controlled by someone is the biggest threat to my Twilight Tong City. With that said, Chen Yi didn't delay any longer, and she ordered, Taoist I Ching, you and I will work together to capture Xiaohua. Disciples, kill everyone else. Don't let anyone else know about this. Yes. Several disciples answered in unison. They circulated their magic power and charged toward Xiaohua. Xiaohua sighed helplessly as he looked at the group of Twilight Tong City's disciples and Chen Yi. He said, It's easy to change mountains and rivers, but it's hard to change one's nature. Even 600 years, is not enough to fill a person's greed. Since greed is hard to fill, then there's no need to fill it. You do it. Xiaohua pointed his finger at Yuanya, and a shadow of light fell into Yuanya's body. Kacha! A thunderous sound came from Yuanya's body. Chen Yi had already discovered Zhenqing and Sun Qian's presence, so she had a plan to settle this old grudge, so as to avoid a rift between her and Twilight Tong City's city lord Qing Liuzi. Xiaohua's appearance was indeed unexpected. Others might not know Xiaohua's strength, but Chen Yi did know a little. Whether it was the terrifying phoenix in the sword battle, or Wu Ming in the nascent soul realm, Chen Yi was quite wary of both of them. However, Chen Yi wasn't willing to give up such an excellent opportunity. She and Daoist I Ching from Dawntree City secretly observed Xiaohua. The two of them discovered that Xiaohua was only at the early nascent soul stage. Chen Yi alone might not be his match, but if the two of them joined forces, it was very likely that they could capture Xiaohua. Of course, the impression Xiaohua had left on Chen Yi was too deep. Chen Yi was still hesitant, but just as Chen Yigong had said, a fortune gate controlled by someone was more terrifying than an uncontrolled fortune gate. After weighing the pros and cons, the two of them still chose to attack. Xiaohua's calmness did not exceed Chen Yi's expectations, but she really did not understand why Xiaohua did not attack her, but instead turned around to attack the golden core cultivator beside her. However, when the thunderous sound came from Yuanya's body, an even more majestic pressure soared into the sky, and then rushed out in all directions like a flood. Yuanya's aura rose steadily, and in a few breaths' time he was already as tall as a mountain, and his figure was indomitable like a demon god. Chen Yi finally came to her senses, and her face turned ashen in an instant. Compared to Yuanya's aura, her nascent soul aura couldn't even compare to a trickle. Damn it, run! Chen Yi cursed under her breath. She didn't have time to give an order, and her figure was about to teleport away. Unfortunately, in front of Yuanya, who had stepped into the 8th grade, Chen Yi, who had just broken through to the 4th grade, was not even comparable to a child. How could she possibly escape from Yuanya's hands? Seeing that the void around her had been sealed, and she couldn't see even a trace of heaven and earth spiritual energy, and her body was as heavy as 10,000 caddies, she couldn't even move. Chen Yi's heart turned cold, and her thoughts raced as she shouted, Daoist Xiao, the merciful and compassionate Daoist Xiao. This servant knows her wrongs. This servant will not dare to do it again. Please spare this servant. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a tip, and Chapter 5086. Xiaohua and the others heard Chen Yi's words clearly. Xiaohua shook his head slightly and said word by word. Some people can be forgiven, but some people can't be forgiven. Forgiving a good person who made a mistake can reap good results, but forgiving a bad person who came to his senses can only reap bad results. Chen Yi still wanted to argue, but Yuanya had already taken out his devil spear. Woo. Devil chi surged out amidst the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. It had already covered 100 miles around them. In the blink of an eye, all the evil chi, all the schemes, all the grudges, and all the schemes turned into nothing. The dragon-like devil spear was retracted, and the thousands of layers of devil chi were also absorbed into the devil spear. Under the devil chi, Zhenqing and the others were revealed. Yuanya's spear had already shocked them. They had never thought that there would be such powerful cultivators in the world. Those were two nascent soul masters, dozens of Golden Core Realm and Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. They were much stronger than an ordinary sect. In just one spear strike, they had all turned into ashes. I've let you be stained with blood again. Xiaohua looked at Yuanya retracting his devil spear and suppressing his cultivation. Xiaohua sighed and said, but if I were to do it, I wouldn't be able to do it. Master is benevolent and doesn't like blood. Moreover, they are too weak. How can I let Master do it? Let disciple do it for you. Yuanya said nonchalantly. This kind of slaughter is also beneficial to disciples' cultivation. And Master understands. Xiaohua said and once again sealed Yuanya's cultivation to the Golden Core Realm. Taoist Master. It really is Taoist Master Xiao. The unparalleled Taoist Master Xiao. Unlike Zhenqing and the others who were panicking, Zhenyu was filled with reverence. He couldn't help but exclaim, "With Taoist master, our fortune gate will definitely be the number one." Suddenly, Zhenyu realized that it was inappropriate and quickly shut his mouth. He looked at Zhenqing awkwardly. Xiaohua frowned and looked at Zhenyu. "What do you mean? Are you a spy sent by the fortune gate to the Imperial Lightning Sect?" Zhenyu hurriedly knelt down and said, "Tao Master, Junior is indeed a disciple of the Imperial Lightning Sect, not a disciple of the Fortune Gate. However, this Junior's family has received Taoist Master's grace, and this Junior's family regards Taoist Master as a living Holy Spirit. Although this Junior cannot enter the Fortune Gate, this Junior, like many other cultivators, regards himself as a Fortune Gate disciple." See, Xiaohua suddenly realized something and sucked in a breath of cold air. He already understood why Chenyi, who clearly knew that he was Xiaohua and didn't have any confidence, insisted on attacking him. Even if she couldn't capture him, she still wanted to kill him. "Senior," Sun Qian hurriedly said, "please don't blame Zhenyu. This situation happened in the Dao cultivation sects of the 3 cultivation nations. No, it even happened in the sword sect of the Huan nation. After all, enlightened master's grace back then spread throughout the entire world." And Xiaohua nodded and said, "This old man understands. If it was someone else, perhaps they wouldn't have so much momentum, but this old man's cultivation method is a bit special." At this point, Xiaohua suddenly realized that something was wrong and hurriedly said with a smile, "Sun Qian, you don't have to call me senior, just call me Taoist Xiao." "Yes, Taoist Xiao." A shy look appeared on Sun Qian's pretty face. However, she did not loosen her grip on Zhenqing's hand. Sun Qian had used her strength as her armor and stubbornness to protect herself all her life. When she tore her mask off, she cherished the affection she had just received more than anyone else. Senior brother," Sun Shu said with a slight groan. Aren't you too low-key? I thought you were at most a cultivator in the middle or late nascent soul stage, but I didn't expect your disciple to be so powerful. I don't even know what realm he is at. What realm are you at?" Xiaohua looked at Sun Shu with a smile and said, "Is it important what realm I am at? The important thing is that no matter what realm I am at, I am still your senior brother, okay?" "Hee, I like that." Sun Shu giggled and said, "If..." Unfortunately, just as Sun Shu said those 2 words, the expression in her eyes changed and she didn't continue. Instead, she changed the topic and said, "If senior brother gives me some more benefits, I will like it even more." Isn't that simple?" Xiaohua didn't hesitate and took out a storage pouch and handed it to her. "This is for you." "Senior brother, I was just joking." Sun Shu was naturally joking. She wanted to cover up what she almost said just now, but seeing that Xiaohua took it seriously, she was a little embarrassed. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Even if you didn't say it, I would still give it to you. We haven't seen each other for so many years, no matter what, there should be some greeting gift, right?" Then thank you, senior brother." Sun Shu and Xiaohua had experience together, so she naturally knew Xiaohua's temper. She didn't hold back and casually took the storage pouch and put it away without looking at it. Xiaohua then looked at Zhenqing, who had been silent all this time, and thought for a moment before saying, "Martial uncle, Junior won't give you cultivation techniques or golden cores for the time being. Junior will give you some spiritual items to replenish your lifespan first. Once your lifespan is replenished, Junior will help you conceive a baby. After you conceive a baby, everything will be fine." As he said that, Xiaohua took out a few immortal peaches and gave them to Zhenqing, Sun Qian, and even Sun Shu and Zhenyu. "Spiritual master, what is this?" Zhenyu held the immortal peach and was a little puzzled. He asked, "This thing can replenish my lifespan." "This is an immortal peach," Xiaohua explained. "It can replenish some of your lifespan, but it varies from person to person. Of course, you don't need it now, so you might as well keep it first and use it later. Your task now is to clean up the storage pouches and flying boats of the cultivators of Tongmu City, and hand them over to Martial Uncle Zhenqing." "Okay." Zhenyu was overjoyed when he heard that. He kept the immortal peach and happily went to clean up the mess. Should I keep it too? Sun Shu thought for a moment and said, after all, I have already taken the rejuvenation pill before. Eat it. Xiao Hua said in a low voice. I have a lot of these things here. Just treat it as a taste of something new. Xiao Hua's words made Sun Shu recall some memories. She held back the redness in her eyes and nodded. Yes, senior martial brother. Then, she took a bite of the immortal peach and let the sweet juice and the joy of reunion seep into her heart. Zhenqing looked at Xiao Hua with a complicated gaze. Back then, he was the first to discover that Xiao Hua was Wu Ming. That kind of shock hadn't happened for hundreds of years. Now that he met Xiao Hua again, the shock was 100 times stronger than before. He didn't know how to face this high-level cultivator, who was so respectful to him. Xiao Hua's disciple could easily kill nascent soul Chini. Xiao Hua's strength. Perhaps even the Imperial Thunder Sect master couldn't compare to him. Of course, other than being shocked, Zhenqing also felt guilty about Chen Yi's death. Zhenqing was an indecisive person, but at the same time, he was also a sentimental person. Because of this, he had delayed himself and delayed Sun Qian. Now Chen Yi died in front of him. In an instant, all the memories of his life with Chen Yi flooded his mind. No one knew Zhenqing better than Sun Qian. Sun Qian didn't say anything and just silently looked at Zhenqing. This was the so-called deep hatred of love. After half a cup of tea, Zhen Yu returned and respectfully handed over some storage bags. He said, Martial ancestor. Oh. Zhenqing came back to his senses and responded. He looked at the storage bags and asked, Zhen Yu, where are the corpses of the cultivators in Twilight Tong City? Why are they gone? Martial ancestor. Zhen Yu hurriedly replied, disciple didn't see any corpses. There were only storage bags, magic tools, flying boats and other things. Martial uncle, don't worry. Xiao Hua hurriedly explained. Although the corpses are gone, Yuanya only killed them and didn't erase their primordial spirits. The souls of these cultivators have already entered the cycle of reincarnation. Sigh, alright, I understand. Zhenqing sighed and said to Zhen Yu, these are all Taoist Zhaos. It's better to let Taoist Xiao take them. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Martial ancestor, the so-called knot in one's heart is something that can't be removed. Since that's the case, it's better to put it aside. It's useless to think too much about it. As for these mortal things, I gave them to Martial ancestor. Martial ancestor didn't like them, so I'll let Zhen Yu take them first and distribute them to Martial ancestor's disciples later. And we'll do as Taoist Xiao said. Sun Qian couldn't stand it anymore. She clenched her hand and said, let Zhen Yu take them first. Yes, I understand. When Zhen Yu heard that, he happily kept the storage pouch. Sun Shu urged, Martial ancestor, quick, this immortal peach is very good. As he said that, Sun Shu casually looked through the storage bags that Xiao Hua gave him. When he looked through them, he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Xiao Hua noticed it, and turned to look at Sun Shu. He nodded his head slightly. Sun Shu also smiled and carefully hid the storage bags. Since Zhenqing didn't eat the immortal peach, Sun Qian naturally wouldn't eat it either. Although Zhenqing's mood wasn't good, he still ate the immortal peach. Zhenqing's cultivation was shallow and he couldn't feel that his lifespan was being replenished. However, when the immortal peach entered his mouth, a warm current rushed through his body. The warm feeling came from his heart. Zhenqing! Sun Qian exclaimed. You're your hair. What's wrong? Zhenqing didn't expect the immortal peach's effect to be so obvious. He didn't react for a moment and asked in astonishment. The heavens have eyes. Sun Qian was so happy that she cried. She hurriedly waved her right hand and a mirror appeared. In the mirror, Zhenqing's white hair turned black and the wrinkles on his forehead also calmed down. Of course, after a few breaths, his hair stopped turning black and returned to the familiar white color. But even so, Xiao Hua understood that Zhenqing's lifespan had been replenished. As long as Zhenqing stepped into the nascent soul realm within 100 years, he wouldn't have a problem living for another 1,000 years. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and... Chapter 5087. Alas, it's no wonder that cultivators risk their lives and use unscrupulous means to advance. Xiaohua sighed with emotion as he inwardly said, "The lifespan of an ordinary aura refining cultivator is only 200 years. When they advance to the foundation building realm, their lifespan will increase to 400 years. When they advance to the gold core realm, their lifespan will increase to 800 years. When they condense their nascent soul and communicate with heaven and earth, their lifespan will even increase to 2,000 years. In the face of such temptation, who would be able to maintain their Tao heart?" Not only that, just as Sun Qian finished speaking, Sun Qian herself was startled. She looked at Zhen Qing in disbelief. Zhen Qing didn't understand. Xiaohua, who was at the side, smiled and said, "Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Since the knot in your heart is gone and your Tao realm has improved, you will definitely be pregnant within 10 years. Is that so?" Zhen Qing smiled and looked at Sun Qian. "Your wish has finally come true. Isn't it because—" Sun Qian was about to reply, but Zhen Qing's body suddenly trembled, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. Xiaohua had no choice but to congratulate him once again. "Congratulations, martial uncle. Since you're able to let go, you'll be able to jump out of this world. Within 10 years, you'll definitely be able to conceive a nascent soul." Sun Qian and Zhen Qing had been trapped in love for a long time, but they couldn't compare to Chen Yi, who had severed their love long ago, so they couldn't conceive a baby for a long time. Now that Xiaohua had killed Chen Yi, the knot in their hearts was forcibly broken. Especially, the immortal peaches were the essence of heaven and earth. After the two of them ate the immortal peaches, the laws of heaven and earth had already quietly merged into their Jindan. Conceiving a baby was only a matter of time. "Congratulations, martial uncle. Congratulations, martial uncle." Sun Shu and Jin Yu hurriedly went up to congratulate her. Zhen Qing's character was upright, and she had always loved and cared for her disciples. Thus, Zhen Yu and the others congratulated her from the bottom of their hearts. Zhen Qing, who had just escaped death, smiled and helped the two of them up. He smiled and said, "This old man is useless. I haven't had a breakthrough in my cultivation for a long time. You two need to work harder. Don't be like this old man." "Yes, we understand." Sun Shu and Jin Yu stood up. Zhen Qing then looked at Xiaohua and asked, "Taoist, are you still going with us to the Ardent Fire Mountain?" It seemed like Zhen Qing had already understood that it wasn't a coincidence that Xiaohua had met him. Xiaohua smiled. Since Zhen Qing didn't point it out, he wouldn't explain either. Thus he replied, "Of course, this junior does indeed have some karma with the Ardent Fire Mountain. This time, I might as well settle it." "Alright, with Shinran, this old man has a plan in mind. This time, we won't embarrass the Imperial Thunder Sect," Zhen Qing said with relief. "Senior uncle, please." Seeing that Zhen Yu had already released the flying boat, Xiaohua hurriedly invited Zhen Qing onto the flying boat. Zhen Qing hesitated for a moment, but she didn't decline. She nodded and pulled Xiaohua onto the flying boat. Sun Qian carefully followed behind. It was rare for someone as stubborn as her to be so obedient. The flying boat once again soared into the sky. Sun Shu asked curiously from the side, "Senior apprentice brother, why do you still have a dispute with the Ardent Fire Mountain? Are they the three elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain that I met during the Great Sword Battle?" "Oh, it's a long story." Seeing that the airboat was not moving fast, Xiaohua knew that there was still a long way to go before they arrived at the Ardent Fire Mountain. Although he didn't need to talk about the three continents, it didn't matter if he told Shui about his experiential learning. Therefore, he told her about his fate with the Ardent Fire Mountain. Since Xiaohua took the initiative to mention Shui, Sun Shu also couldn't avoid it. After Xiaohua finished speaking, Sun Shu probed, "Senior apprentice brother, do you already know about senior apprentice sister?" Shui was a foundation establishment disciple, and Wu Hen was a golden core cultivator. Both of them had life spirit tablets in the Imperial Thunder Sect. When the two of them died, the Imperial Thunder Sect would discover it. Therefore, Sun Shu already knew that Shui was no longer in this world. And Xiaohua nodded. "Shui died for me. How come I didn't know about it? Senior apprentice sister is really powerful." Sun Shu suddenly understood something and whispered, "I can't compare with her." "There's no need to compare." Xiaohua smiled and said, Everyone is different. Just be yourself. Wu Hen? Zhen Qing asked. The two of us are the same. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, that day when Junior left the Imperial Thunder sect, Junior discovered that two nascent soul cultivators were chasing Junior. Junior was unable to escape no matter how hard Junior tried. In the end, Master and Xue Xue suddenly appeared and self-detonated to trap the two of them. Junior was able to escape. Zhen Qing frowned. Clearly, she didn't understand why Xue Xue and Wu Hen suddenly appeared. However, Xiaohua was a member of the government. Zhen Qing couldn't not believe his words. Moreover, this involved the two people closest to Xiaohua. Xiaohua definitely wouldn't lie. Therefore, Zhen Qing continued to ask, what about the two nascent soul cultivators? Why were they chasing you? Those two nascent soul cultivators have already fallen. Xiaohua replied. From the beginning to the end, they didn't reveal their identity. Junior doesn't know who they are, and also doesn't know why they were chasing Junior. Damn it! Zhen Qing recalled that day when Xiaohua was expelled from the Imperial Thunder sect, and was chased by two nascent soul cultivators. Her heart was filled with anger, and she cursed in a low voice. What about now? Sun Qian was also worried about Xiaohua and asked. Xiaohua pursed his lips and smiled. This is the reason why Junior wanted to hide his cultivation. This Junior wants to know. Who is it that is so interested in this Junior? Sun Shu said curiously. Senior brother has already seen those two nascent soul cultivators. With senior brother's current strength, it shouldn't be difficult for you to find those two missing nascent soul cultivators, right? And this is of course simple. Xiaohua nodded. However, senior brother still has more important things to do. Moreover, this matter. Senior brother doesn't need to do it personally. Presumably, someone has already investigated it. Senior brother can just find someone to ask. What senior brother wants to do now is to find the mastermind behind these missing nascent soul cultivators. Senior brother wants to lure the snake out of its hole. Sun Shu understood and said with a smile. Senior brother has always been low-key. Even for such an important matter, you still handle it this way. There are many ways to solve this problem, Xiaohua said with a smile. With senior brother's current strength, it's even easier. Senior brother can find the truth with any method. Senior brother just casually found one. That's true. Sun Shu glanced at Yuanya, who didn't speak much, and said with some jealousy. Senior brother has such a powerful disciple, who can casually sweep across the Dawn Rain continent. Then there's no need to care about the method. After saying that, Sun Shu was curious and asked, Hehe, senior brother, how many of such disciples do you have? Not many, only 6. Xiaohua didn't hide and replied with a smile. Ah, so many? Sun Shu said in surprise. Are they as powerful as Yuanya? And more or less? Xiaohua knew that this was a chat and said without hiding anything. Some are more powerful than him. And some are worse than him. Senior brother, you really have the momentum of sweeping across the Dawn Rain continent. Sun Shu couldn't help but cry out. Then her eyes turned and asked tentatively. How about this, senior brother? You let your disciple accept me as a disciple. Sun Shu's feelings for Xiaohua were also deep, but in front of Xue Xue, Sun Shu still tactfully hid these thoughts. Now that Xue Xue had fallen, Sun Shu was even more moved by Xue Xue's fearless love. Her love couldn't help but sprout, so this sentence was also a kind of test. Who knew that Xiaohua's reaction was far beyond her expectations? Xiaohua raised his hand slightly and placed it on Sun Shu's head, rubbing her hair, and said with a smile. You are this Zhao's little sister. What do you want to cultivate? This senior brother can teach you. Why do you need to take them as your master? Logically speaking, they should be able to call you martial aunt. Yes, senior brother, this junior sister understands. Sun Shu's heart ached. She knew that she couldn't be compared to Xue Xue in this life. Although she agreed, the disappointment in her heart was far greater than the joy in her mouth. Seeing Xiaohua cut off Sun Shu's feelings so neatly, Sun Qian at the side sighed with emotion. She looked at Zhen Qing beside her, and understood that if Zhen Qing was like this a few years ago, things wouldn't have ended up like this. However, looking at Sun Shu's disappointment and thinking about her own gains, Sun Qian sighed with emotion and also felt happy. Zhen Qing pondered, but she only put this thought aside and asked with a smile. Xiaohua, where have you been cultivating in seclusion these past few years? Why is there no news at all? In other realms. Xiaohua knew that Zhen Qing was concerned, but he still smiled and said, this matter will be known by Martial Uncle in the future. This junior won't waste time talking about it. Okay. Zhen Qing nodded. Xiaohua was afraid that he would ask too much, so he thought for a moment and said, Martial Uncle, back then, you gave this junior your understanding of core condensation, which was extremely helpful to this junior's cultivation. Now that this junior has taken a step earlier, I will also share my understanding with Martial Uncle. Yeah, you steer the boat and let Zhen point out the direction. Yes, Master. Yuanya replied and asked for the direction of Ardent Fire Mountain. He urged the flying boat to fly faster than before. Zhen Qing, Sun Qian, Sun Shu and Zhen sat on the flying boat and listened to Xiaohua's detailed explanation. Xiaohua's explanation was naturally different from the others. He could see the flaws in each person's cultivation and where they needed to be supplemented. Therefore, although it seemed that he was talking to the four of them, each of them listened as if he was exhorting them. They really benefited a lot. Even after 10 days, when Ardent Fire Mountain was already in sight, they were still immersed in the enlightenment and did not hear anything. Xiaohua stopped and said with a smile, Martial Uncle, we are already near Ardent Fire Mountain. You can inform the Fire Qilin now. Zhen Qing and the others were listening to the wonderful part. Xiaohua suddenly stopped and felt a little embarrassed. Sun Shu could not help but beg. Senior Martial Brother, please talk for another half a day. This little sister is listening with enthusiasm. Unfortunately, Xiaohua shook his head and said, it's not that I don't want to talk, but this kind of explanation is far from ending. If I don't talk about it until you step into the Mahayana realm and ascend to the immortal realm, you will never feel satisfied. Then how about another half a day? Zhen Qing could not help but ask. Okay. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, nodded and started talking again. Sure enough, half a day passed very quickly. When Xiaohua stopped talking, the four of them still felt that they were not satisfied. Without waiting for Sun Shu to speak, Xiaohua said with a smile, in the future, if I establish a sect in the Dawn Rain continent, I will definitely hold a forum and give lectures. If you all want to listen, you can go at that time. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all kinds of support. Chapter 5088. Alas. Zhen sighed and said, it's only today that Junior understands what it means to gladly endure hardships. Previously, when Junior was cultivating, there were often things that Junior didn't understand. Sometimes the master who taught me didn't explain it clearly, which made Junior feel that the path of cultivation was really difficult. But now, after listening to Taoist's lecture, I feel that the path of cultivation is really bright. You think too much. Xiaohua responded and said to Zhen Qing, Martial Uncle, send out the summoning talisman. If we delay any longer, there might be other cultivators coming to the Ardent Fire Mountain. Okay. Zhen Qing glanced at Xiaohua and knew that he had already discovered other cultivators. She quickly took out the summoning talisman and activated it with her magic power. The summoning talisman flew into the distant Crimson Mountain range and disappeared. Seeing the summoning talisman disappear, Zhen Qing was about to ask who the other cultivators were when a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. He couldn't help but bite his lips because he already understood that Xiaohua's appearance wasn't just a coincidence. It might even be intentional. Xiaohua wanted to test Chen. Alas, this is fate. Zhen Qing sighed inwardly. Chen has been scheming against others all her life, but I didn't expect that she would fall into someone else's scheme today. No, it should be said that this is someone else's test. If she was a little bit more sentimental, she wouldn't have ended up in this state. Zhen Qing, who was easily sentimental, fell into a state of longing again, and didn't say anything. In the sky, other than the flying boat, there was only the whistling of the mountain wind. The mountain peak here was different from other places. Other than the mountain rocks being crimson red, the ground was also crimson red. On the ground, there was a type of plant that was more than a foot tall. This plant stem was red, and between the branches and leaves, there was a spiral shape. Layer after layer of light red was stained on the surface like smoke. When the wind blew, the red leaves danced, as if they were covered in flames. On the mountain peak, there were also tall pine trees. These pine trees were also red. Although the red of the pine trees wasn't as bright as the red of the ground and was somewhat dark, the red was dense like blood. When the mountain wind whistled, the pine trees swayed, and the crimson color danced. Amidst the crimson color, a fiery red flying shuttle that could only accommodate one person flew out from the mountain range. When the flying shuttle landed, an aura-refining disciple jumped down from the shuttle. Looking at everyone, he didn't dare to neglect and bowed respectfully. Junior is Huafeng from the Ardent Fire Mountain. Get up. Zhenqing collected her thoughts and helped Huafeng up with a smile. We are disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect. We rushed here after receiving the Fire Qilin's message. Bring us to him. Huafeng stood up and looked at the crowd. He smiled and said, Seniors, may I know which one of you is Ancestor Zhen? Oh, because my Imperial Thunder Sect has some important matters to attend to, Martial Ancestor Zhen can't come personally, so he sent us over. Sun Shu frowned and answered for Zhenqing. Then, Huafeng was still unwilling to give up and asked, which Grandmaster is a Nascent Soul Grandmaster? No Nascent Soul Grandmaster from my Imperial Thunder Sect has come. Sun Shu was somewhat displeased and said, If the Fire Qilin doesn't welcome the disciples of the Imperial Lightning Sect, then we will return and report to Ancestor Zhen. Senior, please forgive me. Huafeng was sent by the Fire Qilin to welcome them, so he was naturally eloquent. He hurriedly replied, Junior didn't mean that. Junior doesn't know if my Grandmaster made it clear in the message he sent to Ancestor Zhen, but the current situation in the Ardent Fire Mountain is somewhat complicated. If you don't have the strength of a Nascent Soul Grandmaster, I'm afraid you won't be able to deal with it. Moreover, your life might be in danger, so Junior asked a few more questions. The meaning in Huafeng's words was very clear. If Xiaohua wasn't here, Zhenqing might have turned around and left. But at this moment, Zhenqing's expression was calm and she said with a smile, Huafeng, don't worry. Bring us to see the Fire Qilin. We definitely won't disappoint him. Huafeng naturally couldn't tell the strength of Xiaohua, Yuanya, Zhenqing and the others, but after hearing Zhenqing's assurance, he was overjoyed. He brought Zhenqing and the others and flew into the depths of the mountain. Senior Martial Brother. Sun Shu couldn't help but ask through voice transmission. Are there any other cultivators from the other sects coming? Are there any other cultivators from the other sects? Sun Shu didn't know what to say when he saw the blazing hot air in front of him. Xiaohua glanced into the distance and revealed a strange expression. He said with a smile, I don't know many nascent soul cultivators, but I'm very familiar with this nascent soul cultivator. Who? Sun Shu was somewhat curious. After all, Xiaohua was only a foundation establishment cultivator before he went missing. Ming Country Changbai Sect, Daoist Jingru. Xiaohua said word by word. Daoist Jingru? Sun Shu was stunned and asked curiously. He's a cultivator from Ming Country. Why did he come to my country of Xi? There's no other way, Xiaohua said with a smile. It seems that there are many nascent soul cultivators who received the favor of the three elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain. After several hundred years, their descendants can still find nascent soul cultivators to help them with their tokens. It's just that if the three elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain were the same person, and now that they're divided into three sects, I don't know who this favor belongs to. Xiaohua's words were naturally sarcastic. Zhenqing and Sun Shu might not know. But Xiaohua was clear about the eccentric temperament of the three nascent soul cultivators of the Ardent Fire Mountain. The nascent soul cultivators they offended definitely exceeded the number of nascent soul cultivators who received their favor. Yes, it's been more than 700 years since the Sword Dao War. Zhenqing sighed and said, The Fire Qilin took the token and went to find Martial Ancestor General. No wonder Martial Ancestor didn't want to come. Moreover, The fire Qilin didn't come personally and only sent Huofeng over. There's something wrong with that. Oh. Xiaohua was stunned. He thought that Zhenlei Palace really had some urgent matter, but now, it seemed that it was just Zhen Qing's excuse. Senior martial brother? Sun Shu asked. How did you know Daoist Jingru? How could we know each other? Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, This guy has enmity with me. Soon after, Xiaohua whispered about the grudge between him and Daoist Jingru. Hearing that Daoist Jingru, a nascent soul cultivator, actually chased after Xiaohua from Gue Hixi all the way to the Imperial Thunder Sect, Sun Shu and Zhen Qing's expressions changed. Sun Shu even said with righteous indignation, Is this still a nascent soul cultivator? So shameless? Fortunately. Xiaohua smiled and said, I was lucky enough to escape back to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Since then I haven't seen this guy again. Sun Shu shouted, Senior martial brother, just kill him. Zhen Qing immediately thought of Chun Yi and said with a bitter smile, Daoist really came back to the Dawn Rain continent to settle the karma. Yes, if I don't settle the karma, how can my Dao heart be clear? Xiaohua said while transforming. Martial uncle, if there's anything, just tell Yuanya. Junior will see what Daoist Jingru is like now before making a decision. Seeing Xiaohua transforming into an unfamiliar cultivator, Zhen Qing smiled bitterly and said, All right, I hope the senior Jingru can pass the test. Daoist. Sun Qian, who had been silent all this time, suddenly asked, Since you understand karma, are you preparing for ascension? Oh, Xiaohua was surprised. He looked at Sun Qian and said, You know about ascension? Sun Qian's face was a bit red, and she said with a smile, Junior obtained a broken jade slip a long time ago, and there was an introduction about ascension inside. However, ascension is only a legend, so Junior has long forgotten about it. And Xiaohua nodded and replied, More or less. Xiaohua's words were really shocking. Previously, Sun Shu inferred with common sense that Xiaohua was a mid-nascent soul cultivator. Later, when she saw how powerful Yuanya was, Sun Shu racked her brains to guess Xiaohua's cultivation level. Now when she heard that Xiaohua was about to ascend, her brain buzzed, as if the whole world was about to collapse or darken. The immortal realm was almost ethereal to all the cultivators on the Dawn Rain continent, but to Sun Shu, it was closer to an ideal. She had never thought that she would be able to face a cultivator who was about to ascend. Moreover, this cultivator had traveled with her and gone through trials and hardships together. Seeing everyone's astonishment, Xiaohua said with a smile, This is the path that all cultivators must take. As long as you all work hard, this day will definitely come. Yes, Junior understands. Facing such a supreme cultivator, Zhen Qing didn't dare to be negligent. She bowed and replied, Understood. Another karma settled. When Xiaohua heard how Zhen Qing addressed him, he sighed in his heart. He understood that he had one less concern in this world. While everyone was talking, they arrived in front of another mountain. This mountain was one of the many mountain peaks. Cryptic fluctuations were emitted from it from time to time. Wherever the fluctuations passed, faint flames would appear in the void. When the wind blew, the flames would also appear. Everyone stood in front of the mountain peak, as if they were facing a huge bundle of flames. Senior, please wait a moment. Huofeng stopped and respectfully said, Junior asks martial ancestor to come out and welcome us. Well said. Zhen Qing replied with a smile. With an ascended cultivator overseeing things, she was even more confident. Huofeng sent out a communication talisman. Not long after, the fire Qilin flew over with a group of disciples from the Ardent Fire Mountain. Some of these disciples were quite old, some were young, and some were in the Foundation Establishment realm. However, most of them were in the Aura Refining realm. When the fire Qilin saw that Xing Yunzi wasn't among the group of cultivators, he was obviously disappointed. However, this was within his expectations. When he saw Xiaohua, his face unconsciously became more spirited. He hurriedly bowed respectfully and said, Junior Fire Qilin greets Senior. Senior, you seem a bit unfamiliar. How should I address you? This old man's name is Zhang Xiaohua. Xiaohua said with a smile. Just call me Senior Zhang. Yes, yes, Junior greets Senior Zhang. After the Fire Qilin bowed, he greeted everyone. Xiaohua paid attention to the Fire Qilin. At this time, the Fire Qilin was already a late-stage gold core cultivator. Not only was his face old, but there was also a lot of fatigue between his eyebrows. However, the way he greeted people was very different from before. He was no longer straightforward and had added the necessary etiquette. Although there was a lot of hypocrisy in his etiquette, it could still be considered an improvement. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all forms of support. Thank you to Alliance Leader Mei Xianjun, Alliance Leader Chuan Tong, Alliance Leader Daoist Xiao, Book of Flight, and other fellow Daoists. Chapter 5089. After greeting each other, the Fire Qilin couldn't help but ask again. Fellow Daoist Gen, does Senior Xingyunzi really have no time to come? Today's matter is really too important to I. Hearing this, Xiaohua laughed in his heart and thought to himself, after all, it's the Fire Qilin. If it was someone else who knew that Xingyunzi wasn't coming, why would they ask again? Moreover, he didn't go out to greet him, and only sent a disciple. This is obviously disrespectful to the Imperial Thunder sect. Zhenqing had no choice but to repeat the previous words. The disappointment on the Fire Qilin's face deepened. He looked at Zhenqing and then at Xiaohua and asked in a low voice, Senior Zhang, what's your current strength? I'm at the early nascent soul stage. Xiaohua said proudly. What? If you only want to wait for Xingyunzi, then I'll go back first. Zhenqing hurriedly mediated and said, Fire Qilin, Senior Zhang is a good friend of my Grandmaster. Grandmaster Zhen can't come, so he specially invited Senior Zhang to come. Don't be rude. The Fire Qilin woke up and hurriedly said with an apologetic smile, Senior, please don't blame me. Junior didn't mean that. Junior heard that the Fire Luan not only invited Changbai Sect's Reverend Jingru, but also invited a mysterious cultivator. That Reverend Jingru is a senior in the middle or late nascent soul stage. Junior was afraid that Senior Zhang would be at a disadvantage. Fire Qilin, why did you invite Xingyunzi over? Xiaohua frowned and said, I'm only here to represent Xingyunzi. I'm not here to fight with my life on the line. You have to explain the matter clearly. The Fire Qilin was somewhat embarrassed and hurriedly replied, Senior, there's no need to fight with my life on the line. But a fight is possible. Junior begs Senior. Junior's life is in Senior's hands. I'm just an early nascent soul stage cultivator. How can I be Reverend Jingru's opponent? Xiaohua said. You've put your life on my hands. Isn't it all for nothing? Oh, Senior, don't worry. The Fire Qilin said again. Junior invited Senior Zhen and others. Damn it. Xiaohua said somewhat angrily. Fire Qilin, what's going on? What happened to your ardent fire mountain? Who else did you invite? Senior. The Fire Qilin hurriedly replied. But at that moment, whoosh! Another messaging talisman flew over from afar, passing through the many restrictive spells, and landing in front of the Fire Qilin. The Fire Qilin received the messaging talisman and glanced at it. It was immediately overjoyed and cried out, Senior Zhang, please wait a moment. This junior will go and welcome Adept Bluefeather. Everything will be explained once I return. After saying that, the Fire Qilin's figure streaked across the sky and rushed out of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Behind him, the group of Ardent Fire Mountain disciples were somewhat flustered. They did not know if they should follow the Fire Qilin to welcome Adept Bluefeather, or stay here to accompany Xiaohua and the others. Of course, this was only for a short moment before some older disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain appeared. After a brief discussion, some of them brought their disciples and flew up to welcome Adept Bluefeather. Some of them stayed where they were, accompanying Xiaohua and the others as they waited for Adept Bluefeather. Hehe, Senior, please forgive me. The one who accompanied Xiaohua was an early-stage gold core old man. He smiled and said to Xiaohua, Senior, don't look at my family's young master's lack of understanding. His temperament is the most straightforward and sincere. He is the most suitable candidate to be the sect master of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Only he can convince the masses and make the other two sects of the Ardent Fire Mountain follow him wholeheartedly. And Xiaohua did not comment. He also looked out of the Ardent Fire Mountain like everyone else. He seemed to have some thoughts in his heart. Adept Bluefeather is a nascent soul cultivator of the Meng Nation's immortal music sect. Adept Jingyu is also a nascent soul cultivator of the Meng Nation's Changbai sect. These two nascent soul cultivators of the Meng Nation were invited by two people of the Ardent Fire Mountain at the same time. Is this a coincidence? In fact, whether it was a coincidence or not didn't mean anything to Xiaohua. In just half a cup of tea's time, Adept Bluefeather and his disciples had already arrived in front of the Ardent Fire Mountain accompanied by the Fire Qilin. Xiaohua had met Adept Bluefeather in the Xiankong Pavilion of Haoming City. At that time, Adept Bluefeather was just a short and fat early-stage nascent soul cultivator. 600 years had left a lot of hardships on Adept Bluefeather's face. It even allowed Adept Bluefeather to step into the late-stage nascent soul stage. However, it did not change Adept Bluefeather's short and fat body. Xiaohua recognized the high and mighty nascent soul grandmaster at a glance. Junior greets Adept Bluefeather. Although Adept Bluefeather was a cultivator of the Meng Nation, the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain and the disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect all bowed to greet him. While everyone bowed, only Xiaohua and Yuanya stood upright. Adept Bluefeather naturally saw Xiaohua and Yuanya. Xiaohua was somewhat glad that he had suppressed his realm to the nascent soul stage. If he had been at the gold core stage, he might have had to salute Adept Bluefeather. Wouldn't he have reaped what he sowed? Thinking of this, Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "I Zhang Xiaohua greets Adept Bluefeather." Zhang Xiaohua. Adept Bluefeather frowned and asked curiously, how come this old man didn't know that there was a nascent soul cultivator called Zhang Xiaohua in the country of Xi? Fellow Taoist is not a cultivator of the country of Xi, so naturally you don't know about the matters of the country of Xi. Xiaohua retorted indifferently. Could it be that every nascent soul cultivator in the country of Xi has to report to the country of Meng? Senior. The Fire Qilin hurriedly tried to smooth things over and said with a smile, Senior Bluefeather, this Senior Zhang is a good friend of Senior Xingyunzi from the Imperial Thunder sect. He came to my Ardent Fire Mountain because of Senior Zhen's request. Senior, please don't misunderstand. How can this old man misunderstand? Adept Bluefeather sneered. This old man is only afraid that someone has mixed in with us and hindered you from taking charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Take charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain? Xiaohua frowned and said, Fire Qilin, this old man asked you before. This old man didn't know what happened to your Ardent Fire Mountain, and you didn't explain clearly. How come there's someone taking charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain now? The Fire Qilin smiled bitterly and said, Senior Zhang, no matter what, you are still a nascent soul cultivator of the country of Xi. How could you not know the current situation of my Ardent Fire Mountain? Xiaohua nodded and said, This old man naturally knows the situation of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Since the fall of the three elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain hundreds of years ago, the Ardent Fire Mountain has become a pile of loose sand. There hasn't been a qualified sect master to support the Ardent Fire Mountain. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua suddenly realized and said, This old man understands. This time you want to choose a suitable sect master, right? Facing Xiaohua's hindsight, the Fire Qilin was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, Senior Zhang is right. That's why this junior invited Adept Bluefeather and Senior Zhen to help this junior, so that I can take the position of sect master of the Ardent Fire Mountain in one fell swoop. Xiaohua took a deep look at the Fire Qilin and said with a smile, So that's how it is. This old man received Xingyunzi's message and hurried over, so I didn't think much about it. No wonder you said that you needed this old man to take action. But since this old man wants to take action, what benefits does this old man have? Seeing Xiaohua directly ask about the benefits in front of so many people, the Fire Qilin's expression became very awkward. He looked at Adept Bluefeather and opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he hesitated. Adept Bluefeather was displeased. He looked at Xiaohua and asked, Fellow Taoist Zhang, which sect are you from? Fortune Gate. Xiaohua replied indifferently. Fortune Gate? Adept Bluefeather was stunned. Then a sneer appeared on his face and he said coldly, "So you were sent by Zhong Haoren to tease this old man?" When the fire Qilin heard this, he was also stunned. He looked at Xiaohua strangely and whispered, "Fortune Gate." Without waiting for Xiaohua to explain, Adept Bluefeather said, "This old man doesn't care which sect you are from, but since you are a nascent soul master, you should have the awareness of a nascent soul master. You should understand the rules of a high-level cultivator. When you saw this old man just now, you didn't even know how to salute, and now you are asking about the benefits in front of others. Could it be that your family's elders didn't teach you?" Seeing that Adept Bluefeather was getting angry and even dared to talk about his sect's elders, an early gold core old man who had accompanied the fire Qilin to greet Adept Bluefeather hurriedly flew out from the crowd and bowed. "Senior Bluefeather, please don't be anxious." Adept Bluefeather was even more displeased with being interrupted. He sneered, "Who are you? How dare you interrupt this old man?" The fire Qilin hurriedly said, "Senior, please know that this is the Hall Master of my Ardent Fire Mountains Fire Spirit Hall, Hall Master Huapengfei." "Senior, please don't be anxious. Listen to Junior's explanation," Huapengfei said with a smile. Although this Senior Zhang is a bit straightforward, his words are not excessive. After all, he followed Senior to the Ardent Fire Mountain from afar. From a moral point of view, he has already done his best. Supporting my Fire Qilin's martial uncle Hua to take charge of the Ardent Fire Mountain is not something that can be decided with just a few words. We invited seniors to come here to borrow seniors' strength. If my Ardent Fire Mountain did not pay any price, how could seniors help us? When we sent the message to seniors that day, juniors wanted to make things clear. However, Martial Uncle Qilin felt that seniors had not come yet, so it was too unscrupulous to talk about the price and benefits. Therefore, he did not say anything. As a matter of fact, it caused a misunderstanding. Senior Sheng Yunzi of the Imperial Thunder sect did not come, and Senior Zhang also misunderstood that my Ardent Fire Mountain only spoke empty words. This is the fault of my Ardent Fire Mountain. Junior apologizes to seniors on behalf of Martial Uncle Qilin. Seeing that Huapengfei was apologizing, the Fire Qilin hurriedly said, "This is my fault. How can I let Hall Master Hor apologize?" Senior Zhang, Senior Bluefeather, Junior was not familiar with the affairs of the common people in his early years. These years I have changed a lot, but after all, let's not talk about it. This is Junior's fault. Seniors, please forgive me. Xiaohua was about to raise his hand to speak when he suddenly saw Adept Bluefeather's lips move. His heart stirred and he slightly urged his divine ability. Adept Bluefeather's voice transmitted to his ears. "Pengfei, Fire Qilin still hasn't decided? This Zhang Xiaohua is a nascent soul cultivator from which sect in the state of Xi? Don't let him mess up our plans." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5090. Senior, don't worry. Huapengfei bowed and said, "This is not a matter of Fire Qilin's decision. Fire Hibiscus and Fire Luan have already offered that item as the price. How could he not comply? If Ardent Fire Mountain had not decided on this matter, how could this junior dare to let Fire Qilin send a communication talisman to Senior? As for this Zhang Xiaohua, this junior has never heard of her. However, when I sent the message to Imperial Thunder Sect's Senior Sheng Yunzi, there was no mention of that item. Presumably, Senior Sheng Yunzi did not know about it, so he sent the senior over. This shows that Imperial Thunder Sect does not attach importance to this matter. Senior Zhang, I'll have to trouble Senior to speak about it. After all, this junior has already told Senior that a senior from Imperial Thunder Sect will come. And this old man understands." Taoist Master Bluefeather agreed and said, "This old man will see the situation first." Xiaohua understood and thought, so the matter of Ardent Fire Mountain is really complicated. This Taoist Master Bluefeather does not seem to have a relationship with the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain, but is colluding with this Hall Master called Huapengfei. His goal is the item of Ardent Fire Mountain. However, Taoist Master Bluefeather is already a mid or late nascent soul cultivator. At this time, Ardent Fire Mountain does not even have a single nascent soul cultivator. If he wants that item, he can just come and take it. Why go through so much trouble? Xiaohua thought and hurriedly raised his hand to support Fire Qilin and the others. He said with a smile, "This old man is ashamed of himself. This old man is not a profiteer. Because of the changes in the world's spiritual energy, this old man has seen my fellow Taoists fall under the thunder tribulation one after another. This old man is pregnant with a nascent soul and needs to cultivate peacefully. How can I act rashly? Therefore this old man wants to know." Senior. Fire Qilin stood up and bit his lips. He seemed to be forced to speak. "Senior, rest assured, my Ardent Fire Mountain." Just as Fire Qilin said this, woo-woo, a whistling sound came from the distant mountain range. Everyone looked up and saw a fireball falling like a star. Fire Qilin saw the fireball and his expression changed slightly. He glanced at Huapengfei, who also had an inexplicable expression, and whispered, "Lu Hua's message? Martial uncle, could it be? It seems that there is a change." Fire Qilin said. The fireball had already landed in front of Fire Qilin in a flash. The Fire Qilin opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of scarlet-red true yuan into the fireball. The fireball quickly shrank and turned into a fist-sized jade ball. When the Fire Qilin's divine sense entered the jade ball, a look of realization appeared on its face. It said, "The Fire Hibiscus and the Fire Luan request to postpone the battle. They intend to change it to 10 days later." After saying this, the Fire Qilin seemed to have temporarily removed a heavy burden, and said to Taoist Master Bluefeather and Xiaohua with a smile, "Since that's the case, seniors, please move to the Fire Spirit Hall." Junior. Wait. Before the Fire Qilin could finish speaking, Huapengfei spoke abruptly. "Martial uncle, you must not agree to it. Seniors, there's no need to wait here. Head directly to Jiuhua Peak." Oh, the Fire Qilin was puzzled and asked, "Why? The two seniors have come from afar and haven't rested yet. Isn't it good for them to delay the time?" "Martial uncles, can you tell me the reason for the delay?" Huapengfei asked. The Fire Qilin shook its head. "No. Then when is the date we agreed on?" Huapengfei asked. "Tomorrow, of course." The Fire Qilin smiled. "Isn't this what we agreed on together?" "Martial uncle." Huapengfei smiled bitterly. "Senior, you have to think about it. They wanted to set the time 5 days ago, but the reason we strongly opposed it and insisted on setting the time tomorrow was because we were worried that Senior Bluefeather wouldn't be able to arrive in time. Now that Senior Bluefeather and Senior Zhang have arrived, they want to postpone it instead." "Senior, why do you think they are postponing it?" The Fire Qilin was ignorant of worldly affairs, but that didn't mean it was stupid. On the contrary, it was extremely intelligent. When it heard this, it already understood and nodded. "That's right, there's no need to say anything more. The reinforcements Hua Ferong and Hua Luan asked for definitely didn't arrive in time, so they decided to postpone it. If we want to win, we definitely can't agree to postpone it." At this point, the Fire Qilin hesitated again and said, But when we asked to postpone it that day, Ferong also helped us." "Martial Uncle Qilin," Huapengfei persuaded. "Senior, think about it again. If not for Martial Uncle Ferong having difficulties and her reinforcements not arriving in time, would she have agreed to postpone it? Now there's no time to lose. Martial Uncle has sent a message to Lu Hua, saying that he doesn't agree to postpone it. Furthermore, we will now rush to Jiuhua Peak. Senior Bluefeather and Senior Zhang will be waiting there. We'll see how they respond." The Fire Qilin was still hesitant. Following which, some disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain began to persuade it. After a few moments, the Fire Qilin sent a message to Xiaohua and Taoist Bluefeather. "Two seniors, this junior originally wanted to set up a banquet. No need to say more." Taoist Bluefeather was rather straightforward. He flicked his sleeve and said, "This old man doesn't lack a banquet from your Ardent Fire Mountain. Hurry to Jiuhua Peak. This matter is over. This old man still has other matters to attend to." Yes. Senior, please." The Fire Qilin respectfully said. "This junior happens to be on the way." I'll explain the matter that I didn't explain to the two seniors. Xiaohua naturally didn't mind. He flew to the other side of the fire qilin and listened to the fire qilin explain the matter. It wasn't particularly different from his guess. After the ardent fire mountain was divided into 3 factions, they hadn't been able to select a suitable sect head. Although the fire qilin's cultivation was high, he wasn't familiar with common affairs. Many disciples of the ardent fire mountain were unconvinced. Hua Furong and Hua Jiu weren't strong either. Therefore, the 3 factions had been in a stalemate for close to 100 years. Afterwards, when they saw the ardent fire mountain declining, everyone felt that if this continued, the ardent fire mountain would be exterminated before the sect head appeared. Therefore, everyone thought of the final battle. Speaking of battle, the fire qilin was naturally the leader. Hua Furong and Hua Wan proposed that they couldn't rely on the disciples of the ardent fire mountain to decide the sect head. After all, the ardent fire mountain was also a Dao cultivator sect in the cultivation 3 nations. They could also invite disciples from other sects to participate. If the fire qilin had more tricks up his sleeves, he naturally wouldn't agree. However, the fire qilin only cared about his family and didn't think too much about it. Therefore, he readily agreed. Of course, if they invited cultivators from outside the ardent fire mountain to participate, Jindan cultivators definitely wouldn't do. At the very least, they would have to be early nascent soul cultivators. If they wanted early nascent soul cultivators to participate, just as Xiaohua said, there would be a price. And the price for the entire ardent fire mountain to pay for a nascent soul cultivator to participate was the most valuable treasure of the ardent fire mountain, Jiuhua Peak. As for what this most valuable treasure was, it seemed that only the 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain who had fallen knew about it. No one else knew. This most valuable treasure was sealed within the fire pond under Jiuhua Peak. If they wanted to open this seal, they would have to rely on the 3 tokens that the 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain usually hung around their necks. These 3 tokens weren't lost during the sword battle. They were brought back to the ardent fire mountain by the disciples of the ardent fire mountain, and obtained by the leaders of the 3 sections. Now they were in the hands of the fire qilin, fire hibiscus, and fire luan respectively. To open the seal, not only did it require the 3 tokens, it also required the blood essence of 3 direct bloodlines and a secret technique. It was said that the secret technique was even more strange. It was different every hour. Only by activating the token and dripping a drop of blood essence on the seal would the caster be able to know what the secret technique was. And if the caster didn't know the secret technique or failed to open the seal of the fire pond would produce an extremely powerful backlash that would kill the caster. This was perhaps the reason why Taoist Master Blue Feather didn't dare to act rashly. The current plan of the Ardent Fire Mountain was to use this most valuable treasure to ask a nascent soul grandmaster to help, and choose a sect master of the Ardent Fire Mountain. Moreover, the nascent soul grandmaster would have to swear a blood oath to help the sect master govern the Ardent Fire Mountain for 100 years. After listening to the Fire Qilin's introduction, Xiaohua smiled wryly and said, "Fire Qilin, it's not that I don't agree but you don't even know what the treasure under the Dove Fire Mountain is. Yet you want this old man to help? Moreover, I have to swear a blood oath to help you govern the Ardent Fire Mountain for 100 years. If other sects besiege the Ardent Fire Mountain, does my fortune gate have to help you out?" The Fire Qilin smiled apologetically. Senior's words are reasonable. However, since it's something my 3 great-grandfathers sealed, it can't be wrong. It should be something that seniors can use. Perhaps it would be of some help when one's cultivation reaches the Severed God realm. As for helping this junior, I hope senior can forgive me. Although my Ardent Fire Mountain has declined, if the 3 sects work together, 100 years is enough for my Ardent Fire Mountain to recover. Therefore, if senior obtains the treasure, I hope senior can protect my Ardent Fire Mountain for 100 years. Alright. If your Ardent Fire Mountain thinks this treasure is worth it, then this old man will reluctantly agree. Xiaohua nodded thoughtfully. But he soon realized something and frowned. But, does your Ardent Fire Mountain have 2 supreme treasures? How will this old man and Taoist Blue Feather divide them? Fellow Taoist Zhang. Taoist Blue Feather sneered and said, The ardent fire mountain may have one supreme treasure, or two, or even three supreme treasures. However, before we discuss how to divide them, you and I must first consider helping the fire Qilin seize the sect master position. Secondly, we must consider who will put in more effort, and who will put in less effort in the process of competing for the position. Hee. Xiaohua laughed. This old man thinks that with two nascent soul masters like us here, the Ardent Fire Mountain's sect master position will be easily obtained. Is it possible that the Fire Hibiscus and the Fire Luan will invite 4 more nascent soul masters? Fellow Taoist Zhang, don't be careless. Taoist Blue Feather frowned. You have the opportunity to advance to the nascent soul realm, and other cultivators naturally have the same opportunity. Although the spiritual chi of heaven and earth has changed, and many cultivators have fallen under the sudden nascent soul thunder tribulation, many disciples of aristocratic families have awakened their bloodline, and they have the opportunity to attack the nascent soul realm. The current strength of the aristocratic families in my main country has already emerged, and they are close to the true cultivation sects. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 5091. As Xiaohua flew, he seemed to be pondering. After a long time, he nodded and said, "All right. My cultivation is not as good as fellow Blue Feathers, so I can't use more strength than fellow Blue Feather. This time, I will listen to fellow Blue Feather's arrangement, and don't let I suffer a loss." Taoist Blue Feather laughed and clapped. We came to Ardent Fire Mountain to repay the old affection of the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. Since fellow Zhang said so, how can this old man let you suffer a loss? There were many disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain that followed the Fire Qilin to the Jiuhua Peak. Other than Huapengfei, the majority of the disciples had come. They followed behind the Fire Qilin, and were all whispering to each other. Their faces were filled with excitement, as if they had already seen the Fire Qilin obtain the position of sect master. As for the Fire Qilin, after talking to Xiaohua and Taoist Blue Feather, he was somewhat depressed. He led everyone through the layers of restrictions, and arrived in front of a small mountain peak. Unsurprisingly, this mountain was also crimson in color. However, it was a little short. On the opposite side of the mountain, there were 2 other mountains that were similarly short, forming a tripod. The 3 mountains sandwiched a fire pond. This fire pond was calm, like a fiery red agate that was 100 miles in size. "Senior, please wait a moment." Although they could already see the fire pond, the Fire Qilin still cautiously stopped in midair and said, "This Jiuhua Peak still has one last restriction. Wait for this junior to open it." Soon after, the Fire Qilin threw out a yellow talisman that contained blood essence. A series of muffled rumbling sounds came from the bottom of the mountain peak. It was as if a millstone was rolling up the mountain peak. Layers of scarlet flames poured down from the top of the mountain, until the flames covered the entire mountain peak. A rarely seen heat wave rushed out from the mountain peak. The nearby space slightly swayed, as if it was somewhat distorted. After the heat wave, scattered fluctuations rushed out like raindrops. Wherever the fluctuations went, sparks flew everywhere. After a full meal, the fluctuations gradually thinned out and disappeared. A powerful aura mixed with heat seeped out from the fire pond and rushed into the sky. Hiss! Even someone as strong as Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air upon seeing this aura. He secretly cried out, "This is the aura of a fire attribute soul. Could it be that a soul was sealed under the fire pond?" Oh right. Thinking of this, Xiaohua suddenly looked at Reverend Blue Feather and came to a realization. That year in the Xiankong Pavilion of Haoming City, the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain once said that they had an incomplete soul of an 8th-stage spirit beast. This Reverend Blue Feather wanted to make a deal with the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain, and use the soul of the 8th-stage spirit beast to repair their spirit weapons. However, the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain wanted an innate jellyfish, but this Reverend Blue Feather didn't have one. Could it be that this is the soul of the 8th-stage spirit beast? If that's the case, Then I can explain why Adept Blue Feather insisted on interfering in the matters of Ardent Fire Mountain. Senior. Just as Xiaohua was pondering, the Fire Qilin spoke again. Inside the formation is a forbidden area of my blazing fire mountain, and it's called Zhurong Hall. It's said that this place is an ancient ruin. Oh, I remember that Senior Blue Feather had also been to the Xiankong Pavilion in Haoming City. This place is similar to the Xiankong Pavilion, but it's a little damaged. Oh. Adept Blue Feather raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. I remember that the Xiankong Pavilion is an imitation of the Void Palace, and there are mysteries of the Great Tao inside. Could it be that your Zhurong Hall also has such mysteries? The Fire Qilin smiled apologetically and said, I'm not sure about this. After all, my cultivation is shallow and I can't see anything. However, the interior of this hall is a little strange, so it's better for seniors to be careful. According to my 3 great-grandfathers, they don't dare to walk around carelessly inside. And I understand. Adept Blue Feather casually replied, and then looked at the restriction that had just been opened. His expression was a little uncertain because his divine sense couldn't penetrate the restriction, so he couldn't see what was inside. However, after hearing the Fire Qilin's words, the 3 mountain peaks and the fire pond he saw just now were most likely illusions. Sure enough, after the Fire Qilin passed through the restriction, they also saw 3 mountain peaks, but the scenery was completely different. On top of the mountain peaks were rugged rocks of strange shapes, and each rock was larger than an ordinary hill. There were some strange runes between the rocks, and they looked not only old but also broken. The runes flickered with a dark red light, as if the energy waves that had rushed out from them had come from these runes. However, this wasn't the worst. As soon as everyone entered the restriction, their gazes were immediately attracted by a majestic hall on top of the mountain. This hall was simple and unadorned, and it looked extremely large, as if it covered the sky and the mountain peaks. What welcomed them was a vermilion door. The door was extremely large, and the pillars beside it were also extremely tall. Although the door was half closed, the space it revealed was enough for a dozen people to enter at the same time. On top of the door was a similarly large plaque, but this plaque was already broken, and the words couldn't be seen clearly. Only the flame-like patterns on the edges of the plaque could be seen flickering. As everyone flew closer to the door, a powerful and intimidating aura was emitted from the door, as if a huge monster was opening its mouth and inviting its guests to enter. Senior. The Fire Qilin landed in front of the door and smiled apologetically. This is one of the 3 doors of Zhurong Hall. We can't fly in, and we can only walk in from the ground. Reverend Blue Feather nodded. Guests should follow the host's wishes. You lead the way, and this old man will follow behind. The Fire Qilin entered Zhurong Hall first, and Reverend Blue Feather and Xiaohua followed behind. After entering the hall, what entered everyone's eyes was another simple hall, and the furnishings and decorations inside were much larger than usual. The Fire Qilin didn't stay in the hall for long, and it flew straight into the hall. After passing through a few halls, the fire aura gradually grew stronger, and there were traces of fire in the hall. Moreover, there were already some fire shadows on the left side of the hall, and there were also layers of light and shadow in front of the hall, as if there was a real fire burning. In the end, everyone walked into a damaged hall. Instead of calling this hall a hall, it was more like a platform. This was because the hall had already collapsed. Above the roof of the hall was a greenish-white sky. The floor of the hall was filled with huge cracks, and the abnormally large benefactors were lying on the ground. What was special was that at the front of the hall, where the hall was torn apart, all the cracks were rolling downwards. It looked as if a huge rock had fallen from the sky and caused the hall to collapse again. Xiaohua and the others walked to the other side of the hall, where the hole had been torn apart. Looking down, they saw a bottomless abyss, with smoke lingering in the abyss. Layers of flames rushed out from the bottom of the abyss without restraint, rushing into the sky and into the dome of heaven. The abyss was about 10 miles wide, and there were some faint red lights flashing in it. Waves of obscure fluctuations rushed out from the red lights, and obviously, there was a powerful restriction formation at the bottom. The flames couldn't block everyone's sight. They looked at the bottom of the abyss, then raised their eyes to the opposite side. Through the flames, they could clearly see that there were also two collapsed halls, but the floor of the hall was slightly smaller than the floor under everyone's feet. At this moment, there weren't any figures in these two halls, only broken fences and dilapidated walls. The fire Qilin stopped, pointed at the abyss and said, "Senior, below this abyss is the fire pond, and above the fire pond is a layer of restriction formation. According to my three great-grandfathers, this restriction formation is one with Zhurong Palace, but due to some accident, Zhurong Palace was broken, and a flaw appeared in the restriction formation, which allowed them to use the power of the restriction formation to set up their magic formation. Of course, this magic formation was also created by comprehending the restriction formation of Zhurong Palace, and is not an ordinary magic formation." Reverend Bluefeather slightly nodded and casually responded, but didn't comment. Next to him, Na had already begun to transmit his voice to Huapengfei. "Senior, this is the seal that this junior was talking about earlier. This junior has tried to break it several times. Every time I tried, an extremely powerful counterattack force would be generated from the seal. It is far beyond what this junior can withstand. Therefore, this junior does not dare to act rashly." "What's the secret technique that the fire Qilin mentioned?" Reverend Bluefeather's lips slightly moved as he asked. "Why can't this old man see anything special about it?" "Junior doesn't know about this." Huapengfei looked around, then lowered his head and transmitted his voice. "Junior has only heard about it from the three great-grandfathers of Blazing Fire Mountain when they were still alive. Junior hasn't been here before, and only after receiving Senior's message did I sneak in. This so-called secret technique, Junior doesn't know about it at all. You can be considered the direct descendant of the three great-grandfathers of Blazing Fire Mountain, so how come you don't even know about this secret?" Reverend Bluefeather's words were somewhat directed at Huapengfei's heart. Sure enough, Huapengfei fiercely replied, "Senior is right. The fire Qilin's bloodline isn't as pure as this junior's, but he has received the love of the three great-grandfathers of Blazing Fire Mountain. Therefore, his position is far above this junior's. Senior, look at his indecisive appearance. How can he be a good sect master? If this junior was in his position, it would be impossible for the situation of Blazing Fire Mountain to become like this. Don't worry." Reverend Bluefeather laughed. "This time, this old man will first help the fire Qilin become the sect master. Then I'll suggest you to become the vice sect master. After a period of time, you will be able to ascend to the position of sect master." "Many thanks, Senior." Huapengfei found it inconvenient to bow, but his tone was still respectful. No matter if it was Huapengfei or Reverend Bluefeather, they would never have dreamed that Xiaohua had heard every single word of their conversation. Poor fire Qilin, how could he have known that he had been plotted against by a disciple of his sect and a senior of his sect? He looked at the opposite side, then turned around and respectfully said to Xiaohua and Reverend Bluefeather, "Two seniors, this junior has already sent Lu Hua's message to Huafarong and Huoluan, informing them that the battle will continue as usual. The time of the battle will be tomorrow. Two seniors, please take a rest here, and wait for Huafarong and Huoluan to enter Zhurong Palace tomorrow morning. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward." Chapter 5092. N. Taoist Bluefeather nodded and looked around before walking to a corner of the main hall and sitting down cross-legged. The Golden Core disciple and several Foundation Establishment disciples he brought hurriedly sat down around him. Seeing Taoist Bluefeather leave, Xiaohua also found a place and sat down. Zhenqing and the others naturally stood beside him. Zhenqing wanted to ask something, but seeing that Xiaohua seemed to be meditating, she shut her mouth and closed her eyes to carefully comprehend what she had just learned. After the meal, Xiaohua suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain in the distance and said, "Fire Qilin, come here." "Yes, Senior." Fire Qilin, like everyone else, was also meditating with his eyes closed. Hearing this, he hurriedly stood up and walked over. Taoist Bluefeather naturally heard Xiaohua's voice. He slightly opened his eyes and looked at him before closing them again. A trace of disdain appeared on his face. After all, Xiaohua was just an early nascent soul cultivator. In his opinion, Xiaohua was just an ornament. Now that Xiaohua took the initiative to look for Fire Qilin, it seemed that Xiaohua was overestimating himself. "Senior, what's the matter?" Fire Qilin respectfully saluted. Xiaohua smiled and said, "No need to be polite. Sit down." In front of Senior, this junior doesn't dare to be casual. Fire Qilin was puzzled and didn't dare to sit down. "Sit down. This old man has a few questions to ask you." Xiaohua looked at this golden core cultivator, who was very different from before, and said with some emotion in his heart. Fire Qilin looked at Xiaohua with a somewhat familiar expression, but after carefully thinking about it, he couldn't recognize it. However, he didn't say anything and carefully sat down. Xiaohua said, "This old man was acquainted with the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. That year, I also saw you." "Ah." Fire Qilin was startled and almost jumped up from the ground. He looked at Xiaohua in surprise and asked, "Senior, this junior doesn't have any impression of you?" This old man changed his appearance after becoming pregnant. "Naturally, you can't recognize me," Xiaohua replied with a smile. Fire Qilin suddenly understood and hurriedly said with a smile, "Indeed, this junior didn't think of this. It seems that this junior must congratulate Senior for successfully becoming pregnant." "Actually." Xiaohua nodded his head and indicated for the Fire Qilin to sit down. He said, "This old man's first question is, this old man is very clear about your aptitude. After so many years, you should have been pregnant a long time ago, but this old man doesn't see any signs of you being pregnant at all." The Fire Qilin's face turned a little red when he heard Xiaohua's question. He smiled bitterly and said, "Senior, you may not know this, but ever since the Sword Dao War, my Blazing Fire Mountain's 3 great-grandfathers fell in Sky Patrol City, and my Blazing Fire Mountain began to split. Since then, this junior has not been able to cultivate in peace. Moreover, without the support of great-grandfather, everything that I need for my cultivation has started to be lacking. If it weren't for my good aptitude, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to step into the middle stage of the Gold Core realm." At this point, the Fire Qilin mocked himself. "Actually, if I'm not even at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, I wouldn't have so many troubles now." Xiaohua smiled and said, "This is this old man's second question. Are you really willing to be the sect master?" The Fire Qilin opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but just like before, he swallowed his words. He closed his eyes and thought for a moment, and then said, "Since Senior has seen this junior before, you must have seen this junior before. This junior is actually self-aware. I know that I only know how to cultivate and don't know anything about the affairs of the sect. Moreover, in the past few hundred years, this junior has never thought that he would come to snatch the position of sect master. But with the passage of time, the Blazing Fire Mountain today is no longer the Blazing Fire Mountain in this junior's memory, nor is it the Blazing Fire Mountain where you, a junior, can cultivate in peace. There is a group of cultivators fighting for fame and profit here. In order to get everything they want, they don't hesitate to tear apart their family ties. In that case, why don't you leave the Blazing Fire Mountain?" The Fire Qilin's words were not beyond Xiaohua's expectations. Xiaohua asked with interest. The Fire Qilin did not hesitate this time and immediately replied, "How does Senior know that this junior has never left?" "Oh, since you have left, why are you still here?" Xiaohua asked back. The Fire Qilin smiled bitterly and said, "If this junior is not in the Blazing Fire Mountain, where can I escape to? Besides the Blazing Fire Mountain, is there any place in this world that doesn't have people fighting for fame and profit? If this junior leaves the Blazing Fire Mountain, where can I cultivate?" Xiaohua understood the Fire Qilin's pain and nodded. "So you came back?" "Yes. After all, this is the place where this junior grew up. After all, what can this junior do for the disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain?" The Fire Qilin replied, "This junior doesn't want to see the Blazing Fire Mountain decline like this. If there is a suitable sect master, can you leave with peace of mind?" Xiaohua suddenly asked. "Ah." The Fire Qilin was puzzled. What does senior mean? Xiao Hua smiled and said, Nothing, this is this old man's third question. You can do whatever you want. If you don't want to answer, then forget it. If there is a suitable sect master, this junior can naturally leave. The Fire Qilin replied. Unfortunately, Hua Hibiscus and Huoluan are barely satisfactory. I'm afraid they can't convince the disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Other than their strength being slightly weaker, they are more suitable to be the sect master than you in all other aspects. Xiao Hua said ruthlessly. The Fire Qilin was somewhat embarrassed and nodded. What senior said is true. This junior also admits this point. Actually, this junior might as well say it more deeply. If not for Hua Pengfei and the others encouraging this junior really doesn't want to fight for the position of sect master. This junior only wants to stay in the Blazing Fire Mountain and do some things within his power for the Blazing Fire Mountain. AI. This is what it means when the tree wants to be still but the wind won't stop. Xiao Hua sighed and finally said, I hope that tomorrow your Blazing Fire Mountain will have a good ending and a good beginning. Thank you, senior, for your concern. The Fire Qilin stood up and said respectfully before slowly retreating. Hua Pengfei was naturally concerned. He transmitted his voice to ask what happened. The Fire Qilin only shook his head and didn't say anything. He then closed his eyes and seemed to be meditating. One day and one night quickly passed. The nebula gradually became thinner, and the first rays of dawn were about to arrive. At the broken gap of the Zhurong Palace, a faint light from the sky dispelled the darkness of the night. A wisp of light illuminated along the layers of broken walls, and gradually fell into the dark red abyss. At the broken palace opposite Xiao Hua and the others, a wisp of light flashed and some vague figures appeared. The Fire Qilin had long been paying attention to the opposite side. Seeing the figures appear, he hurriedly jumped up from the ground and said somewhat impatiently, Seniors, Huoluan has arrived. We should go over. And, hearing this, Xiao Hua moved and hurriedly stood up. However, when Xiao Hua walked to the side of the Fire Qilin, the distant Reverend Blue Feather didn't even open her eyes. The Fire Qilin opened his mouth and wanted to wake Reverend Blue Feather up. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Don't worry, the other side only sent Huoluan. It won't be too late to wake Reverend Blue Feather up after Hua Hibiscus comes out. Yes, Junior will listen to Senior's instructions. The Fire Qilin hurriedly nodded and raised his eyes to look at the location of the other palace. That place was still dim and no cultivators appeared. However, after just a few breaths, 2 cultivators flew above the abyss from the palace where Huoluan was. The one in front was really the Huoluan that Xiao Hua saw outside the Inkcloud Black Forest. However, at this time, Huoluan was no longer young and had turned into a white-haired old woman. Her face was covered in wrinkles and her appearance was even more unsightly. If the Fire Qilin hadn't said that this old woman was Huoluan, Xiao Hua was afraid that she would be Hua Hibiscus. After Huoluan, there was another mid and late nascent soul master. Xiao Hua was very familiar with this nascent soul cultivator. It was Reverend Jingru that Xiao Hua saw with his divine sense yesterday. Reverend Jingru's gaze didn't linger on Xiao Hua and the Fire Qilin, but directly fell on Reverend Blue Feather. Her face clearly carried a kind of surprise, as if she didn't expect that Reverend Blue Feather would appear here. Seeing Huoluan flying over, the Fire Qilin couldn't wait any longer. He was about to fly over when Reverend Blue Feather opened her eyes and looked at the abyss. She said, Fellow Taoist Jingru is in a good mood. Why did you come to Ardent Fire Mountain? Ah! Reverend Jingru heard and couldn't help but laugh. Since fellow Taoist Blue Feather can come, why can't this old man come? This old man and Ho Pai Kong are good friends. Before the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain were born, this old man often came to Ardent Fire Mountain to nag, but this old man has never heard the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain mention fellow Taoist Blue Feather. Reverend Blue Feather got up and flew to the Fire Qilin's side. She waved her hand and signaled the Fire Qilin to fly with her to the abyss. She said, That's strange. This old man and Ho Pai Shan are good friends. Although I rarely come to Shi, if the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain were to come to Meng, this old man will definitely welcome them. But this old man has never heard Huapai Shan mention fellow Taoist Jing Ru. While speaking, the Fire Qilin and Xiao Hua followed Reverend Blue Feather to the center of the abyss. They saw that in the depths of the abyss, where even sunlight couldn't penetrate, strands of dark red flame threads flew out from the abyss like smoke. Layers upon layers of fine fluctuations also surged out chaotically. These fluctuations and flame threads landed on the golden light, protecting everyone's body, immediately creating sparks. Which fellow Taoist is this? Reverend Jing Ru acted as if she didn't hear Reverend Blue Feather's question. She looked at Xiao Hua and asked curiously, "How come this old man doesn't have any impression of this person?" Xiao Hua was just about to speak when Reverend Blue Feather smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Jing Ru, you don't need to care about who is beside this old man. You are one of the seniors invited by the Fire Luan, and this old man is one of the seniors invited by the Fire Qilin. Now, you only have the qualifications to ask this old man, but you don't have the qualifications to ask other fellow Taoists. If you want to know the details of this fellow Taoist, I'll have to trouble you to invite another nascent soul master, who has the qualifications to speak with this fellow Taoist." Shua. While they were talking, the last hall also emitted a brilliant light. Hua Hibiscus, who looked similar to the Fire Luan, walked in with a dozen other people. Seeing that the Fire Qilin and Fire Luan had already flown into the abyss, Hua Hibiscus calmly gave a few orders, and also accompanied another early nascent soul stage cultivator to fly over. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5093. Xiao Hua frowned as he looked at this tall cultivator. This cultivator's muscles were bulging and his body was huge. He looked like a body cultivator, and not a Dao cultivator grandmaster. Moreover, this cultivator's appearance was extremely unfamiliar. Xiao Hua had never seen him before. Hehe. Seeing this cultivator fly out, Reverend Blue Feather and Reverend Jing Si both laughed and said, "Blazing Inferno Mountain is really interesting." They actually invited a Kunlun sect cultivator. Although the cultivator looked rough, he was very gentle. Before he could get close, he bowed to the two nascent soul cultivators and said, "Junior Gu Yunzi greets the two seniors." Gu Yunzi of the Kunlun sect? Xiao Hua thought for a while, but he didn't have any impression of this name. Reverend Blue Feather and Reverend Jing Ru didn't dare to be negligent. They hurriedly raised their hands and said, "There's no need to be so polite. Quickly get up. You are now a nascent soul grandmaster. There's no need to be so courteous." "Thank you, seniors." Gu Yunzi stood up and looked at Xiao Hua. He smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, you look very unfamiliar. May I know which sect you are from?" "Fortune Gate." Xiao Hua smiled faintly and answered, "Small sects and small sects can't compare to fellow Taoist." "Fortune Gate?" Gu Yunzi and Reverend Jing Ru looked at each other, then at Reverend Blue Feather. They were rather puzzled by Xiao Hua's answer. However, Taoist Blue Feather was quite satisfied with Xiao Hua's answer and said with a smile, "Just now this old man just told fellow Taoist Jing Su that if you all want to know this fellow Taoist's identity, you still have to pass through this old man first. Otherwise, we'll have to wait for another qualified fellow Taoist to appear." "Excuse me for a moment, seniors." The Fire Luan's face carried a trace of anger. She bowed towards Adept Blue Feather and the others and said, "Junior would like to speak with the Fire Qilin first." "Do as you wish." Adept Blue Feather had a card up his sleeve. He laughed and said, "This is Ardent Fire Mountain, and you are the true masters." After obtaining Adept Blue Feather's permission, the Fire Luan looked at the Fire Qilin and asked, "Fire Qilin, that day when we were discussing, you said to delay it by 5 days. We didn't even think about it before agreeing. Why is it that today, when we want to delay it by 10 days, you won't agree?" "That's right. Even if 10 days isn't enough, 5 days should be enough, right?" Hua Furong also complained. As her elder brother, "Why can't you be more lenient on these few days?" The Fire Qilin was somewhat hesitant, as if he had taken advantage of his two younger sisters by not agreeing to postpone. When she saw this, Hua Luan struck while the iron was hot and said, How about this? It must be very tiring for the 4 seniors to come to my blazing fire mountain from afar. Why don't we ask them to rest in Jurong Hall for 5 days? Ahem. Without waiting for Hulwan to finish speaking, Adept Bluefeather coughed twice and said, Hulwan, that's where you're wrong. Fire Luan did not dare to contradict Daoist Master Bluefeather. It hurriedly smiled and said, What wrong has this junior done? Senior, please enlighten me. You didn't do anything wrong, Adept Bluefeather said indifferently. The ones at fault are us. Fear appeared on Hulwan's face. She lowered her head and said, I don't dare. We were wrong to place our previous friendship with the 3 elders of Blazing Fire Mountain on your heads. We were wrong to believe in your integrity. Adept Bluefeather continued, I don't know what you Blazing Fire Mountain heirs discussed before. I believe that Adept Jingru and Guyunzi don't know either. We only know that we are going to fight here today to help Blazing Fire Mountain find a suitable sect master. Now that the time has come, why do you want to postpone it? Do you think that we nascent soul masters are free and unfettered every day, casually finding a place to meditate? Yes, this junior knows her mistake, Hulwan said and looked sideways at Adept Jingru, as if asking for help. Fellow Daoist Bluefeather. Adept Jingru had obviously discussed with Hulwan. He said with a smile, Blazing Fire Mountain said that the fight will begin today, but they didn't set a specific time. It's still early now, so why don't we wait until the afternoon? Is that so? Adept Bluefeather turned to look at the Fire Qilin. Fire Qilin thought for a moment, but was not sure. He hesitated and said, It seems possible. That's good. Adept Bluefeather heard and nodded without hesitation. Since that's the case, let's take a rest. The fight will begin in the afternoon. With that, Adept Bluefeather turned and flew back. Since Adept Bluefeather left, Adept Jingru also turned and flew back. Only Gu Yunzi looked deeply at Xiaohua and called Hua Hibiscus to fly back. Big brother, you've changed. Before Hulwan left, she also looked deeply at Fire Qilin and threw out such a sentence. Fire Qilin looked at Hulwan's back and smiled bitterly. I was forced to change by you. With that, Fire Qilin said to Xiaohua, Senior, please return. We'll wait for half a day. Whatever. Xiaohua didn't care about a day and half a day. He followed Fire Qilin back and sat down cross-legged, preparing to close his eyes and meditate. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the abyss. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Fire Qilin didn't meditate. He stood in front of the palace and looked at the other side of the abyss. Hulwan and Hua Hibiscus didn't stay in front of the palace for long. They said a few words to Adept Jingru and Gu Yunzi and hurriedly left. Obviously, they were waiting for the other experts. Unfortunately, half a day passed quickly. Even when Fire Qilin deliberately delayed until dusk, no nascent soul cultivators appeared in the 2 palaces. Hulwan and Hua Hibiscus were helpless. They ordered their disciples to wait outside while they followed Adept Jingru and Gu Yunzi to the abyss. Fire Qilin had already waited there with Adept Bluefeather and Xiaohua. Hua Hibiscus. Adept Bluefeather smiled. Who else did you invite? Since they haven't come yet, I'm afraid they won't come again, right? This. Hua Hibiscus hesitated for a moment before replying. They're a bit far from my ardent fire mountain. I've already sent a disciple to send a message. If they don't come now, I'm afraid something went wrong midway. Seeing that Hua Hibiscus wasn't willing to reveal who it was, Adept Bluefeather didn't ask anymore. She looked at Hulwan and said, Hulwan, what about you? Hulwan was rather straightforward. She said, I invited a senior from Tongmu City. They should have arrived long ago, but when Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but smile. He said, If you can wait for Chun Yi and Daoist I Ching, I think you don't have to wait any longer. Ah. Hulwan was stunned. She looked at Xiaohua and asked, Senior, what do you mean? Xiaohua shrugged. He looked at Fire Qilin and said, I didn't expect this old man to eliminate an enemy for you before even reaching Ardent Fire Mountain. It can't be? Hulwan said in disbelief. Although I invited Senior Qing Liuzi, if he couldn't come because he had something to do, he would have sent Fairy Chen. Fairy Chun and Taoist I Ching are already two nascent soul masters. Who are you? Adept Jingru's eyes flashed with a sharp light. She looked at Xiaohua and asked. Xiaohua smiled and patted his head. Jingru, don't you recognize me? As Xiaohua released his pressure, Xiaohua returned to his original appearance. Ah, you're Xiaohua? Gu Yunzi and Reverend Blue Feather might not remember Xiaohua, but Reverend Jing Si had a deep impression of Xiaohua, the thief who stole his natal magic weapon. Seeing that Xiaohua had returned to his original appearance, he had long recognized him. He cursed under his breath and was about to move. However, before he could move, Xiaohua's pressure had already risen to the late stage of nascent soul realm, not inferior to Adept Jingru's. Not only did it force Fire Qilin and the other two to tremble, it also forced Adept Jingru to not dare to act rashly. Xiaohua was only in Qi refinement realm, yet he was able to escape from Adept Jingru. His current realm was not inferior to Adept Jingru's. How could Adept Jingru dare to act without worry? Xiaohua? Adept Jingru was not the only one who was shocked. Adept Blue Feather and Gu Yunzi were also shocked. Fire Qilin, Hua Hibiscus, and Huoluan were the most shocked. You're Xiaohua? Fire Qilin asked and almost flew over to pull Xiaohua to confirm. Hua Hibiscus looked at Xiaohua's appearance that hadn't changed for hundreds of years, and his cultivation that she didn't dare to look at. Her expression flickered and her gaze became blurred, as if she was thinking of the matters of the past. Huoluan's gaze was filled with jealousy, resentment, and dissatisfaction. Huoluan even said, Senior Jingru, the water element ice essence that Junior gave Senior was taken away by him. Adept Xiao, you're so calculating. Adept Blue Feather thought for a moment and said with emotion, You haven't even reached Blazing Fire Mountain. Yet you've already eliminated a formidable enemy for Fire Qilin. If this old man didn't do anything, how could this old man deserve Fire Qilin's respect? Senior, are you the terrifying phoenix in the sword battle, nascent soul realm Wu Ming? Gu Yunzi was puzzled. He bowed and asked. Junior has long heard of Senior's great name. Unfortunately, I can only meet you today. It's truly Junior's honor. Xiaohua's cultivation was only in the middle or late nascent soul realm. It was really similar to Wu Ming's cultivation realm more than 600 years ago. Gu Yunzi didn't doubt him. However, Adept Jingru and Adept Blue Feather were extremely puzzled. They had seen Xiaohua before, especially Adept Jingru. When he was chasing Xiaohua, Xiaohua was really in the foundation establishment realm, with the strength of a gold core realm, and the ability of a nascent soul realm to escape. They hadn't seen each other for hundreds of years, but Xiaohua was actually in the same realm as them. Then what about his strength? Adept Jingru's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. His true essence that had been accumulating began to recede like a tide. Xiaohua didn't know Gu Yunzi and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist, you're too polite. This Xiao just did something that should be done for my Tao cultivation. I didn't expect that it would cause so much trouble. This is really beyond my expectations. No, Gu Yunzi hurriedly said. Senior, you don't know. The battle between my Tao cultivation and the sword cultivator back then was far more complicated than Senior thought. Behind the sword cultivator, there were one or several swordsmen who were far more scheming than my Tao cultivation. They arranged the troops and planned the battle for them. Moreover, the sword cultivator attached much more importance to that battle than my Tao cultivation. After the battle, several of my disciples who were scheming for the Tao cultivation did a reverse analysis, trying to find some clues from it. However, during the deduction, we were all shocked and couldn't help sweating. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to the starting point to subscribe to support. Vote for a monthly vote. Vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5094. Xiaohua naturally knew that LV Ruochang of the Black Phoenix Sword Sect was the commander of the Sword Tao battle. Behind LV Ruochang was Jiuxia from the Green Hill Sect. How could the human Tao cultivators be a match for the Nine-Tailed Fox's scheme? However, he still asked with a smile. What did you find out, Taoist Gu Yin? How could you and the other disciples who planned the battle be afraid? Gu Yunzi sighed and said, "We discovered during the deduction that we had already stepped into the Sword Dao Cultivator's scheme since the beginning of the Sword Dao battle. Although it seemed that the swordsman's arrangements were disorderly, similar to the great swordsmanship battles recorded in the past, in reality, these arrangements, coupled with time, formed a series of seamless and flawless arrangements. Not only did they lure our disciples below the nascent soul stage into the sword tomb and kill them all, but they also lured our nascent soul stage masters into the Sky Patrol City and caught them all in one fell swoop. Of course, it was because of your appearance that not only did you disrupt the arrangement in the early stages of the Sword Dao battle, but you also destroyed the sword tomb at the last critical moment. This saved hundreds of thousands of disciples below the nascent soul stage." At this point, Gu Yunzi took a deep breath and said, "It's a pity that you disappeared after the Battle of the Sword Tomb. If you also participated in the Battle of the Sky Patrol City, our Dao cultivators would never have lost the Sky Patrol City." "How is that possible?" Perfected Jingru said with some reluctance. "Even if Xiaohua was an early-stage nascent soul stage cultivator, he couldn't have achieved anything in the Battle of the Sky Patrol City. Don't forget, even the 3 elders of the Fiery Fire Mountain died in the Sky Patrol City. That mysterious weapon cultivator is really too powerful." "Yes," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Taoist Gu Yunzi, you think too highly of me. If I went, I would also die in the Sky Patrol City." No. Gu Yunzi shook his head and said, "I definitely didn't deduce wrongly. Speaking of this, Gu Yunzi hesitated for a moment, then said firmly, "Let me tell you something a little secret. The reason why I was chosen as one of the think tanks in the last Taoist sword war is because I have a similar skill of dispatching people. More importantly, I have been practicing the deduction skill of our Kunlun sect since I was young. I have some talent in this field and have made some small achievements. And when I used the divination technique, I was shocked to discover that my Dao cultivation had a chance of winning in the Battle of the Sword Dao, and the divination for this chance of winning was on Senior Nameless. It's on Senior Zhao's body." "Tisk," Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Not to mention that several hundred years have passed. If fellow Daoists were to mention it now, this Xiao would not believe it. Even if you had mentioned it that day, this Xiao would not have been able to return to the Sword Dao battle. Don't forget that I was expelled from the Thunder Controlling sect. I'm only an independent cultivator, and I have no obligation to participate in the Battle of the Sword Dao." Sigh. Gu Yunzi sighed for the 3rd time. He smiled bitterly and said, "This junior is extremely regretful about the Imperial Thunder sect's decision. They can only be said to have destroyed their own backbone. This junior even feels that this might be another trap set up by the sword cultivators." By the way, hearing this, Xiaohua was also puzzled. Although he had heard about the matter of the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain being killed by the sword cultivators, he was not clear about the details. At this time, the person in front of him was one of the people who had set up the trap for the Sword Dao battle back then, so he must be clear about many details. Therefore he thought for a moment and said, "Fellow Daoist Gu Yunzi, can you tell this Xiao in detail how the Heavenly Patrol City was taken down by the sword cultivators and how the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain fell?" "Of course." Gu Yunzi smiled and said, "Although this junior did not participate in the 2nd stage of the Sword Dao battle." Cough cough. Just as Gu Yunzi said this, Daoist Blue Feather coughed twice and reminded them, "Fellow Daoists, today we are here to decide the sect master of the Blazing Fire Mountain, not to reminisce about the past. Moreover, don't you think that talking about the fall of the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain will make the disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain sad?" "Haha, that's true." Gu Yunzi hurriedly smiled and said, "This junior knows his mistake. Senior Xiao, there are many details about the Sky Patrol City. If you tell us one by one, we don't have to do our business today. In this junior's opinion, we should first help the disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain decide the important matters in their hearts. Then this junior will explain it to senior in detail. How about it?" And Xiaohua nodded and said, "Since that's the case, let's wait until the matter of the Blazing Fire Mountain is settled before we talk about it." Hua Ferong first heard that Chen Yi and Daoist Yi Qing, whom she had painstakingly invited from Tongmu City, were killed by Xiaohua before they could reach the blazing fire mountain. Then, when she saw Gu Yunzi, whom she had invited, being so respectful to Xiaohua, her heart turned cold. She knew that there was no hope for her today. After Gu Yunzi finished speaking, she hurriedly flew to Xiaohua, knelt down and said, "Senior Xiao." Unfortunately, before she could say anything, all her words were stuck in her throat. Her tears also fell with a shwa-shwa sound. Her originally ugly face became even more unbearable. Xiaohua sighed. He helped Hua Furong up and said, "There's no need to mention anything at this time. It won't be too late to talk about it after today." Gu Yunzi saw Hua Furong kneel down, and was quite puzzled. However, after listening to Xiaohua's words, he understood that Hua Furong and Xiaohua were also old acquaintances. Therefore he smiled and said, "Hua Furong, you can rest assured. Since this old man has come, I will definitely promise. Not to mention Taoist Xiao, whom this old man respects, even if it's my Kunlun sect's martial brothers, this old man will do his best to fight for the position of sect master for you." Damn it. Huoluan heard this and cursed in her heart. She looked at Taoist Jingru and hesitated. However, she still transmitted, "Senior, this junior has just sent a message to Hua Furong. I want to discuss with her about joining forces, but, however, she ignored you and instead knelt down in front of Xiaohua." Taoist Jingru sneered. "This old man will immediately send a message to Gu Yunzi. Since he said that he will do his best to fight for Hua Furong, then he and this old man will join forces to resist Xiaohua and Taoist Blue Feather." "Many thanks, Senior." Huoluan was overjoyed and said, "This is exactly what this junior was thinking. Today, everything will depend on Senior." "Rest assured," Taoist Jingru said faintly, "this old man and Xiaohua have some grudges. This time, I will definitely help you. Moreover, since this old man has promised you, I will definitely promise. You can open the restriction of the fire pond." Okay. Huoluan was even happier when she heard that Taoist Jingru and Xiaohua had some grudges. She agreed and turned her head to look at Hua Furong. Of course, Huoluan was still looking at Taoist Jingru from the corner of her eyes. Sure enough, Taoist Jingru's lips moved slightly. Huoluan felt relieved and said to Hua Furong, "Big sister Furong, now that things have come to this, what do you think we should do? Of the seniors we invited, one died before achieving success, and the other disappeared for a long time. Why don't we discuss with Big Brother Qilin again, and ask him to be magnanimous this time? If it was someone else, perhaps Hua Furong would be as stubborn as Huoluan, and would struggle a few more times." However, after seeing Xiaohua, Hua Furong seemed to recall the situation in Haoming City that year. She recalled the situation when she and Fire Qilin joined hands to protect Xiaohua and Shui. The familial affection that was forced to hide in her heart sprouted very easily. She looked at Fire Qilin, who wasn't particularly happy, and shook her head, saying, "Forget it, let's do it this way." "But," Huoluan still pretended to hesitate, then gritted her teeth and said, "Okay. Since that's the case, this little sister will throw caution to the wind. We can't blame others for our bad luck. Fire Qilin, let's join hands to open the seal of the fire pond." Are we really going to open it?" Now that things had come to a head, Fire Qilin was somewhat disappointed and frustrated. He asked in a low voice, This is my blazing Inferno Mountain's most valuable treasure." "What?" Hearing Fire Qilin's words, Huoluan sneered. "Brother Qilin, you're not willing to part with it now? If you're not willing to part with it, why did you fight so fiercely with this little sister on that day? If it weren't for you, this most valuable treasure, how could it have fallen into the hands of other nascent soul seniors? Alas, in the end, it's my blazing Inferno Mountain's disciples who are disappointing. Now that all the seniors have come, what's the point of regretting?" Hua Furong took a deep look at Xiaohua and said to Fire Qilin, "We only hope that the most valuable treasure of my blazing Inferno Mountain can fall into the hands of a suitable senior." After saying that, Hua Furong opened her mouth, and a broken jade pendant flew out from her mouth. The jade pendant was fiery red in color, and looked sparkling and translucent. Inside, There were strands of fire that were as complicated as veins. Seeing that Huofurong was about to make a move, Huoluan and Fire Qilin didn't hesitate, and took out the jade pendants that they controlled. As the three of them pointed their fingers, 3 pieces of jade pendants flew to the center. Along with a brilliant light, they combined into a complete jade pendant. The jade pendant flashed with a faint red light in midair, and produced a faint fluctuation. The fluctuation was faintly discernible, and fell in all directions. Under everyone's feet, waves of tide-like sounds could be heard, as if the ceiling formation had sensed the jade pendant. Looking at the light of the jade pendant, Fire Qilin, Huofurong, and Huoluan's eyes became serious. The 3 of them glanced at each other, and their eyes flickered. They turned their heads to look at the 3 places where the Zhurong Palace had already been turned into ruins. No one knew what the 3 of them saw, but after half a cup of tea's time, the 3 of them turned their heads back almost at the same time and looked at the jade pendant again. They seemed to be recalling something, and also seemed to be revising the secret art. After another half a cup of tea's time, Fire Qilin was the first to speak. I can already activate the secret art. Huofurong and Huoluan didn't answer. Instead, they stared at the jade pendant. After another half a cup of tea's time, Huofurong retracted her gaze and looked at Fire Qilin, saying, I can too. After another half a cup of tea's time, Huoluan finally said, I can too. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a gift, and Chapter 5095. Since we're all ready, let's do it, said the Fire Qilin in a melancholy tone. The earlier we do it, the earlier we can finish it, so that we won't have to worry about it later. Good. Huofurong nodded, but the Fire Luan was a bit hesitant. She turned around and looked at the Zhurong Palace, seeming to be unwilling to give up. Seeing this, the Fire Qilin asked, Fire Luan, who else did you invite? Since they're not coming, what's the point of me telling them? The Fire Luan didn't tell the truth, and only responded blandly. The Fire Qilin didn't care, and responded casually. Next, a fiery light surged around his body, and his hands began to move incantations. As the spell was sent into the jade began to vibrate, and a small flame emerged from the surface of the jade. That flame flickered, and every time it flickered, a thunder-like sound would be generated in the air, and the tide-like sound under everyone's feet would become a bit louder. Immediately after that, Huofurong and the Fire Luan began to move their hands as well. Their moves were obviously different from the Fire Qilin's, and the brightness and size of the flame were different as well. However, when the flame flickered, the thunder-like sound in the air and the tide-like sound in the flame also became a bit louder. When the jade had already become a sphere of flame, the Fire Qilin opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of spirit blood, then confidently changed the spell and sent streams of spirit blood into the flame. After a short while, a real Fire Qilin's blood-red shadow flashed in the spirit blood. Huofurong and the Fire Luan were both weaker than the Fire Qilin, and their bloodlines weren't pure enough either. Therefore, the speed at which they were casting the spell began to slow down, and their hands seemed to be holding heavy objects. When the blurry blood-red shadow slowly emerged in the spirit blood, the 3 of them glanced at each other, then raised their hands and pointed at the blood-red shadow while yelling, Expel! 3 blood-red shadows flew out from the spirit blood, slowly falling towards the flame that was transformed from the jade. Boom! A thunderous boom was generated when the spirit blood touched the flame. Next, the flame suddenly expanded, and transformed into a tens of zhang's large fire cauldron. This fire cauldron had 3 legs, and was shaped like a square. On each side of the cauldron, all kinds of prehistorical scenes were shown. Streams of strong prehistorical power flowed in all directions like water, and fell into the surrounding Zhurong Palace. A strange look appeared in Xiaohua's eyes as he pondered inwardly. This Ardent Fire Mountain's inheritance has some origins. No wonder the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain could establish their own sect here. No wonder even Reverend Bluefeather and Reverend Jingyu coveted the supreme treasure of Ardent Fire Mountain. An unyielding, angry, and unwilling aura was born from this soul essence, pushing the waves of fire in the fire pond to an extremely high level. Even Xiaohua's complexion changed a little from that aura. Not to mention the fire Qilin and the other gold core practitioners, all of them had pale faces, and their bodies were somewhat limp as they struggled to stand there. Looking at this Yazi beast soul essence again, it was not complete, as if it was missing 30%. Even though it was incomplete, there were still hundreds of fire chains tightly binding it. These fire chains were as thick as a fist, and there were many strange runes engraved on them. When the fire chains fell on the Yazi beast soul essence, wisps of green smoke were immediately produced. As the green smoke grew, the runes on the fire chains would enter the soul essence, and the Yazi beast soul essence would violently tremble, as if it was in extreme pain. However, the Yazi beast soul essence's roar could not be heard, and Xiaohua and the others could not hear it. Even though it was in such pain, the Yazi beast soul essence was still struggling unyieldingly. The halos of the fire chains were produced one after another, and countless chaotic fluctuations flowed in the fire pond. Haha, it really is the Yazi beast soul essence. At this time, Taoist Blue Feather's laughter could be heard. This old man knew that the incomplete soul essence of Huatsong Mountain could not be obtained from thin air. It turns out that it was torn out from the complete Yazi beast soul essence. Damn it! When Xiaohua heard this, he suddenly understood. He was also present at the auction in Haoming City. Taoist Blue Feather wanted an 8th grade soul essence to repair a spirit artifact, and Ardent Fire Mountain happened to have an incomplete 8th grade spirit beast soul essence. Because Ardent Fire Mountain wanted the water essence Ice Pith, and Taoist Blue Feather did not have it, the two sides did not come to an agreement on the spot. Presumably, Taoist Blue Feather later found the water essence Ice Pith, and thus obtained the incomplete spirit beast soul essence from Huatsong Mountain. Of course, the incomplete spirit beast soul essence was obtained from the Yazi beast soul essence in the fire pond. Taoist Blue Feather concluded that there was another part of the soul essence in the fire pond, and thus he schemed against Ardent Fire Mountain. Xiaohua did not care that Taoist Blue Feather schemed against Ardent Fire Mountain, but when he saw the Yazi beast soul essence, Xiaohua easily thought of the little white dragon. Therefore, Xiaohua did not want this unyielding and struggling Yazi beast soul essence to fall into a desperate situation and be refined into a spirit artifact soul. Therefore, Xiaohua moved and flew towards the abyss of the fire pond. Although Xiaohua moved, he was still a step too late. Just as Taoist Blue Feather was laughing, Gu Yunzi had already opened his mouth and spat out a fire bead to protect his body. He was the first to rush towards the fire pond. Gu Yunzi indeed did not let Huofarong down. He wanted to use all his strength to obtain this soul essence. Taoist Jingyu was not slow either. He opened his mouth, and another pill furnace flashed with flames and flew out, landing at Taoist Jingyu's feet. The pill furnace flashed with flames and protected Taoist Jingyu. Taoist Jingyu's eyes were filled with resentment as he looked at Xiaohua. He urged his body to rush towards the fire pond after Gu Yunzi. On the contrary, Taoist Blue Feather, because he was too pleased with himself, actually fell behind Xiaohua. When he slapped the top of his head, a clear light carrying a lantern-like spirit artifact surged out. Xiaohua had already flown more than 10 zhang away. However, Taoist Blue Feather's spirit artifact was indeed extraordinary. As soon as the lantern appeared, a blazing aura comparable to the fire pond surged out. This aura was similar to the aura of the Yazi, but it was also a bit sharper. What was special was that the flame on the lantern gave birth to an illusionary image that rippled in all directions like waves. Within the illusionary image, thousands upon thousands of restraining forces came pressing down like layers of mountains. In an instant, the entire space was filled up. Oh, Xiaohua was originally below Taoist Blue Feather. When the suppressive power descended, it enveloped Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua slightly raised his head to look at Taoist Blue Feather. Ha! Taoist Blue Feather laughed loudly and said, "Taoist Xiao, please don't misunderstand." Xiaohua replied with a smile. However, just as his smile appeared, Taoist Blue Feather's face instantly changed and he shouted, "Kill!" As the word kill came out of his mouth, the spirit artifact in Taoist Blue Feather's hand immediately solidified. Dozens of phantoms appeared out of thin air, and fell towards Xiaohua. The suppressive power that originally enveloped Xiaohua suddenly became several times stronger. The space around Xiaohua was like a mountain rock that bound Xiaohua. At the same time, Daoist Calm Deliberation, who was below Xiaohua, raised his head with a sinister smile. He raised his hand and patted his head. Boom! A light sound rang out and a 2-foot-long nascent soul rushed out, surrounded by flames. That nascent soul did not have time to stand still in midair. He raised his hand and waved. A small sword that was only a few inches long transformed into a stream of light and soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, it pierced Xiaohua's back. Although this small sword was small, its sword intent was like lightning. Wherever the small sword passed, layers of cracks appeared in the void. A thumb-sized vortex had already appeared where Xiaohua's back was imprisoned by the spirit artifact. If nothing unexpected happened, within a few breaths of time, Xiaohua, who was being attacked by 2 nascent soul masters, would be pierced through from the back by this small sword. Sigh. A light sigh sounded like the weeping of a ghost. It carried endless helplessness and endless desolation. It was like a disappointment towards the human heart and dissatisfaction towards human nature. This light sigh fell into the hearts of Daoist Calm Deliberation and Daoist Blue Feather. Both of them were inexplicably frightened at the same time. Following this light sigh, Xiaohua's figure, who was originally enveloped by the spirit artifact's true essence, suddenly faded like an ink painting and disappeared in the blink of an eye. PS. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it. Cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5096. This Daoist Blue Feather was shocked and hurriedly looked at the fire qilin in front of Zhurong Hall, because the voice was drifting towards that direction. Impossible! Daoist Master Blue Feather roared in his heart. Xiaohua's figure appeared like a ghost in front of the fire qilin. Xiaohua's hand pointed at Yuanya, who was at the Gold Core realm, and he said, "Go settle this karma for Master." "Yes," Yuanya replied, and his aura surged. With a crackling sound, the aura of the Yazi soul essence shattered inch by inch under Yuanya's dragon-like aura. Yuanya raised his hand and the demon spear appeared. He transformed into a demon god and rushed into the fiery abyss. Damn it! Although Daoist Blue Feather couldn't feel Yuanya's strength for the time being, and wasn't clear about Xiaohua's strength, how could a cultivator who could easily escape from his spirit weapon be easy to deal with? Moreover, Yuanya actually broke through the space sealed by the spirit weapon with a snap of his fingers and rushed straight towards him with the devil spear in his hand. How could he not know Yuanya's strength? Daoist Blue Feather didn't think too much and roared loudly, "Fellow Daoist Jingru, let's kill this guy first." Well said. Daoist Jingru's nascent soul urged the spirit sword to fly out. She was also slightly stunned and raised her sharp voice to reply. Raising the spirit sword, she pounced towards Yuanya like a small snake. Looking at the 2 Grandmaster-level experts attacking Yuanya together, Xiaohua slightly shook his head. Daoist Blue Feather and Daoist Jingru had already started to discuss through voice transmission after hearing that Xiaohua killed Chen. One had a feud with Xiaohua, and the other felt that Xiaohua might not be able to obtain the Ardent Fire Mountain's treasure as she wished. Therefore, the 2 nascent souls from Meng Kingdom hit it off, and planned to kill Xiaohua first before making any plans. Unfortunately, what they didn't know was that every word they said had fallen into Xiaohua's ears. Xiaohua was just beating them at their own game to see if the 2 of them would really attack. While Xiaohua was shaking his head, Xiaohua suddenly knitted his eyebrows, raised his eyes and looked at the broken roof of Zhurong Palace. In that area, a fiery red cloud had covered the clear sky. At this time, a fishnet-like sword light suddenly appeared above the clouds. The sword light passed through the flames and turned into 2 unparalleled huge swords, making a clang-clang sound, and pierced towards the abyss fire pond. Sword Cultivator? 2nd grade sword transformation. Fire Luan actually invited a sword cultivator? Xiaohua looked at Fire Luan opposite him. Sure enough, when Hua Luan heard the sword cry, her face was filled with ecstasy. Needless to say, This sword cultivator was a helper that Huoluan had invited. Damn it. Seeing this, the fire Qilin beside Xiaohua cursed in a low voice. Fire Luan. She actually asked a sword cultivator for help. The fire Qilin would not have been so angry if the fire Luan had invited any sect from the Three Kingdoms. However, the fire Luan had invited a sword cultivator from the Huan Kingdom. The sword cultivator who had killed the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain in front of Sky Patrol City. This was unacceptable. Roar. Seeing the greatsword chopping down. How could Adept Bluefeather dare to attack Yuanyao again? He let out an angry roar. Like a spirit artifact, his figure turned into a ray of light that met the giant's sword. As for Yuanya, a cold smile appeared on his face. He casually raised his bone spear and stabbed it towards the giant's sword. With a loud sound, the bone spear pierced through the void and pierced the giant's sword. With the sound of the sword ringing, the giant sword shattered and a yellow-faced sword cultivator appeared from the fragments of sword light. The sword cultivator's face was filled with shock as he looked at Yuanya in disbelief. His left arm, which had not yet withdrawn from the sword shape, was already covering his abdomen. A glowing blood was slowly flowing out from there. At the same time, another loud boom rang out. The other great sword that was thrusting towards Daoist Bluefeather was also sent flying by the spirit artifact. As the sword light scattered, a skinny sword cultivator was revealed in a sorry state. The 2 sword cultivators did not expect that they would be defeated in a single blow the moment they appeared. They looked at Daoist Bluefeather again. Although he had repelled the sword cultivator who had launched a sneak attack, the spirit artifact under his control flickered extremely. A layer of deathly white color appeared on his face. Roar. When the spirit artifact was damaged, Yazi's soul essence in the depths of the fire pond immediately sensed it. The soul essence roared and set off another wave of fire. As the wave of fire soared into the sky, the rapidly descending Gu Yunzi had no choice but to dodge to the side and temporarily avoid the sharp edge. As for Yuanya, his figure merely paused for a moment. After pondering for a moment, he thrust his spear at the injured sword cultivator. Yuanya was not as benevolent as Xiaohua. If the sword cultivator dared to launch a sneak attack on him, he would definitely take the sword cultivator's life. Kung Kung. When the 2 sword cultivators saw that Yuanya's momentum was unparalleled, they were shocked and hurriedly opened their mouths to let out a sharp cry. Yuanya was somewhat puzzled, but after a few breaths, he suddenly raised his head and saw that under the cloud of fire, a golden light had struck down from the sky. It was even faster than lightning. Moreover, this golden light was extremely arrogant. Not only did it attack Yuanya, it also covered the nascent souls of Daoist Bluefeather and Daoist Jingru. Only Gu Yunzi flew low and was not affected. This is... Seeing the golden light, Yuanya was somewhat stunned. However, he knew that this golden light was powerful and did not dare to be negligent. He raised his spear and blocked the golden light. Shwa. With a soft sound, the golden light attacking Yuanya was restrained in front of the bone spear. Even someone as strong as Yuanya's arm trembled slightly. He hurriedly looked at his bone spear. Fortunately, although there was a faint mark on the bone spear, the demonic aura around the mark had already formed like silk and began to slowly repair it. Yuanya was in such a state, but Daoist Bluefeather and Daoist Jingru were not so relaxed. Daoist Bluefeather had just blocked the attack of the giant sword. Before the backlash of the spirit weapon could dissipate from his body, the murderous golden light had already landed. Pooh! With a soft sound, the golden light split all the phantoms of the spirit weapon into a neat crack. Under the crack, the golden light struck the top of Daoist Bluefeather's head. Although Daoist Bluefeather tried his best to dodge, the golden light was too sharp. It easily tore through Daoist Bluefeather's protective golden light, and easily chopped off the left half of his arm. Daoist Bluefeather was in great pain, and hurriedly urged his broken body to dodge to the side of the abyss. Just as Daoist Bluefeather urged his body to move, another sharp scream came from below him. Daoist Bluefeather did not need to look to know that this was Daoist Jingru's nascent soul being split apart by the golden light. Sure enough, where the golden light landed, Taoist Jingru's flying sword was neatly split in half. Her nascent soul was also split in half without any resistance. Taoist Soaring Dragon. Without waiting for the golden light to disappear, Taoist Bluefeather roared in a low voice, "You? Why are you here?" At the place where the golden light dissipated, Taoist Soaring Dragon's bony figure slowly revealed himself. Taoist Bluefeather looked at Taoist Soaring Dragon with fear in his eyes. Back then, under Sky Patrol City, even Taoist Yuan Qing of the Tai Ching sect, who had stepped into the late nascent soul stage, was defeated by Taoist Soaring Dragon. How could the current Taoist Bluefeather be Taoist Soaring Dragon's opponent? This was Xiaohua's first time seeing Taoist Soaring Dragon. He looked at Taoist Soaring Dragon's withered yellow face with interest and the ruthlessness flashing in his scarlet yellow eyes. He did not make a move and seemed to be thinking about something. However, this was not the end of it. Just as Taoist Soaring Dragon's figure appeared, a green light from all directions shrouded him like a clear cloud. Wherever the green light passed, whether it was the fire of the fire pond or the Yazi's aura, they were all annihilated. Lu, Fallen Flower Fairy. Taoist Bluefeather's face was ashen as he roared. Facing the fierce weapon Cultivator, who could kill the 3 elders of the blazing fire mountain 700 years ago, Taoist Bluefeather could already see the shadow of death. When the green light appeared, there was no mercy at all. Ka. A clear sound like the sound of nature was emitted from the green light. A green cloud flashing with golden light fell from the green light. This golden light was several times bigger than the one in Sky Patrol City. It completely enveloped the entire abyss and brazenly fell. The golden light was even more powerful than Taoist Soaring Dragon's. As soon as it appeared, it immediately fell on top of Taoist Bluefeather's head. Taoist Bluefeather only had time to activate his spirit weapon to resist, but the golden light had already penetrated his spirit weapon. Shua. Wherever the golden light passed, the fire of the spirit weapon was extinguished like a candle in the wind. An extremely dim Yazi soul essence broke free from the golden light. It turned into a stream of light and fell into the void, instantly falling back into the fire pond. After the soul essence, the golden light brushed past Taoist Bluefeather's body. It was even more powerful than when it killed the 3 elders of the blazing fire mountain. Taoist Bluefeather's nascent soul did not even escape. It was annihilated along with his body. Where do you think you're going? In the distance, Taoist Soaring Dragon saw the remnant soul of the spirit weapon fall into the fire pond and coldly said. He turned into a golden light and rushed towards the Yazi's soul essence under the fire chain. Naturally, Yuanya was also under Luo Hua Fairy's golden light. He did not dare to be negligent. He waved his bone spear and the soaring devil flame turned into a devil head to block the golden light. Although the golden light brushed deeply into the devil flame, it was gradually refined by the devil flame. After all, Yuanya, who was close to the 8th grade of elemental energy, was not someone Luo Hua Fairy could compare with. Although Luo Hua Fairy's light was blocked by Yuanya's devil spear, the golden light in other places still fell. Taoist Jingyu, who had lost his nascent soul, was even more vulnerable. He only activated his body to escape for 1,000 feet before the golden light caught up with him. When his body was annihilated, he did not even have time to scream. Gu Yunzi, who was originally hiding from the fierce aura of the Yazi's soul essence, had already sensed that something was wrong when the sword Cultivator appeared. He activated his body and quietly went to the side of Zhurong Palace. When Taoist Soaring Dragon killed Taoist Jingyu's nascent soul, Luo Hua Fairy killed Taoist Jingyu and Taoist Bluefeather, Guyunzi could not help but cry out, "Save me." Alas! Xiaohua sighed again. Weapon cultivators. In the end, they are not righteous. At this time, you don't even have any humanity left. What kind of cultivators are you? Along with this sigh, a big golden hand stretched out from the top of the abyss and covered Guyunzi. Luo Hua Fairy's golden light could kill the 3 elders of the blazing fire mountain, but when it landed on this big hand, it could only cut off 30% of the golden light of the big hand. It could not destroy the big hand. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and that you're tuning in to the Lime's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.